Turned off.
So they didn't pick up from the very beginning? No?
Nothing. Okay, we're good. Looks like we got it.
You good? Okay. I'll call the meeting back to order. Here in Chambers, we had a glitch with the streaming of the YouTube. We got that working now. We did start the meeting and did the pledge and invocation, and we was at the approval of the agenda. I think Commissioner Wilson made a motion to approve, and Commissioner Vilga made a motion to second. Is there any other discussion on this agenda? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next item is the Board of Liaison reports. First one is Mayor Pro Tem Medley. If you would give us one on the Planning Board. Thank you.
I remember this time. I think the last meeting that we had was more of the LDO meeting where we met with the some of the planning board members and myself, you and Jackie, I believe. Our next meeting is coming up, I think, on the 22nd for that same group. I actually am not sure about our next, as when our next date. Is it 27? I knew it was somewhere at the end of the month. So we haven't had any meetings in regards to the planning board. We've had joint meetings with any of you and myself as a part of that committee working on the LDO. And there's some interesting things in there, so I can't wait until it comes back to the board as a whole. But that's really where we are right now.
Yep. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I think the UDO is coming along really well. I know Julie's worked really hard on that, and I think some of you guys are seeing it now, I believe, where you can kind of read. She's got some reading assignments that she can do. So it's very entertaining. So so make sure you do those. But thanks, Michelle. Appreciate the update there. Commissioner Sutton, Economic Development. I know there's a lot happening on that front.
There is a lot happening. I want to. Can you all hear me? I want to make sure. Okay. I wanted to update you all on the organization that we're developing and to clarify some things about the organization. So we do have a name. It is the Rolesville Downtown Development Association, or affectionately RDDA, as I call it. This group is not a committee for the town. This is an actual organization or an association, and it's based on what's called this Main Street approach. And the Main Street approach is basically a framework to build your community, really to revitalize your downtown. And even though we're not really revitalizing our downtown, because we don't really have a per se downtown, we are using those tools. And the sessions that we're going through, we're supposed to have up to 13 members. And the sessions we're going through with the North Carolina, I always forget this name, Department of Commerce, Bruce Nagelin, is doing a fantastic job of taking this group through the steps. There's kind of 4 points that this downtown approach or Main Street approach is based on. It looks at design, economic vitality, the organization itself, and then promotion and marketing. So we've had a couple of meetings. We're going to have a total of 5 or 6 where we've stepped through a couple of those components. And our last meeting was March 24th, where we talked about a couple of things, design and organization. And our next meeting will be April 21st, coming up to talk about promotion and economic vitality. I'm excited about this group because this is something that will hopefully outlast this board and be kind of an economic engine, if you will, for Rolesville in the years to come. So this is not a committee. This is something that's going to be hopefully years to come. The group is excited, but what I like most about it is the group is getting educated on how to market Rolesville and how to support our economic development efforts. you will see these groups that exist in different communities. Garner has one, Clayton, probably most communities in Wake County have these same kind of associations. So this is one that's being developed in Rolesville. We are going to name officers shortly here, and we're also going to come up with an economic positioning statement, or in common language, a vision for the group. So this will not be some willy-nilly organization just doing stuff. It really is going to be a partner and a liaison with the town in order to make a difference and an impact here in not only promoting Rolesville and what we're doing, but marketing it and helping businesses that are here, kind of getting our name out there. It'll be another group that's our cheerleader, if you will. So I'm excited. Bruce is doing a fantastic job. I'm looking forward to our next session. So that's really what I've been focused on right now. I have been reaching out to some businesses in the area. I know a couple restaurants, and I've been talking with the owners and telling them about Cobblestone and referring them to Michael. So trying to do a lot on that front as well. But I think this group is going to be a great engine for us where we can partner with the town as well as the chamber. So I'm looking forward to what's to come. So more to come. April 21st, we meet again. And once we're done with all of those components that I mentioned, I'm going to share with you all a one-pager so you have that and you know specifically what we're doing and what the group's about.
Great. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited too. I was able to sit in on some of the meetings, and I think it's a good group of people that's really going to do a good job. And I think the timing is perfect because I really think that we're going to start seeing some commercial growth at these, Cobblestone, and you mentioned Walbrook, and it's some others too. The one on next to Brayford Place there, and different things. It's really going to be energizing. It's one thing to try to start something and you ain't got anything to start with.
Right.
But I think with things that's going on, it's going to be really, like you said, exciting, and it's going to be very energizing because you actually see results very quickly, hopefully. So thanks for that. I think Michael is doing a great job with that, and I appreciate everybody else that's working on that committee. And it is a working committee. I think, like, as you described, it will be broken up into 4 main arms that's working for the better of Main Street there. So appreciate that.
And I will add that there's business owners involved. So this group's going to be motivated just from that, from having a business in Rolesville or wanting to have a business in Rolesville. I think is going to be a great energizer as well. So I'm excited. So thank you for being a part.
Yep, I am too. Commissioner Vilga, Parks Rec Advisory Board.
Yeah, last meeting was March 24th. They had a presentation on the bond referendum. Also received an update on the Farm Master Plan. They're trying to get the cost estimates in by the end of May for consideration. There's a new program for art in town. They're going to choose an artist out of everyone that had put something in for it, and they're going to put it in June. They're going to put it around town, and if citizens find it, they get to keep it. So it's like a unique pieces of art. There's a new sign coming for Redford Place Park, and there's also updates that are taking place right now. They're painting some of the stuff out there, and they're also getting windscreens for the ball fields. April 16th, there's a blood drive. April 17th, there's a litter sweep. And we have a special meeting regarding the bond tomorrow evening. That's all I have.
Good report. Thank you, Paul. And I know it's not part of the Parks and Rolesville Parks and Recreation, but maybe some of the kids used to participate in Rolesville Parks and Recreation. I would say congratulations to the big victory that Rolesville had over Wake Forest. That I forgot 2,700 days or something since they lost before, and they played people throughout the state and kept winning and winning, and then their old half of their school, the Rolesville half is the ones that beat them, and good job there. And I know you speak to those people pretty often with.
And they're also the conference champs right now too.
Yeah,
so,
they got one more game though, I think, coming up, but I think they've clinched that. So. Really good. I mean, that was a good showing that they made there. It wasn't even a close game. So, yeah, Good.
36-3.
Yeah.
I just want to put it out there.
Right.
That's awesome.
I wish I had a little bet with Vivian. Now that they're on equal footing, I think we can start, you know, I didn't want to start that until we got really in the place to be able to do that. And
That's
I think it's a good time now. Okay, thank you, Paul. Appreciate the report. Commissioner Wilson, Public Safety.
Public safety, as you know, meets quarterly, and I've already reported last month on on our meeting in February. We meet again this week, so I'll be able to give you a report in May on that. In regard to the fire department and the merger, well, the fire department board meets Monday night, and on the agenda is to discuss replacing 2 vehicles. It's got some age on them, and they already have it in their budget and in their cost-sharing approximation. Kelly is working on an agreement, and he is negotiating with the board. But at this time, we really don't have anything to share. It's a work in progress. So did I say it right, Kelly?
I've been working on a proposal to get started on negotiations. So I think we're there. We're going to check in with our consultant, make sure he's ready, and then we'll start the process of negotiating and include you all in that conversation when time comes. So.
And you have been given everything, or you and Amy have been given everything you have requested,
Yes.
okay, including the balance sheet with the liabilities and assets.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that it happened, and I'd forgotten to ask you that when I spoke with you earlier today.
Good.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Sneed, North Carolina League of Municipalities.
Okay. We were given a list of 17 legislative goals for us as a board to vote on. We submitted 10 of our top 10 votes, which were submitted to Robin, and she tallied. And out of the 17, 8 were of our selection.
Wow.
We submitted 10, and 8 of our 10 were selected. They chose only 12. And so the way that I thought it was interesting that the way they developed these legislative goals, it started with a focus group of 35 focus groups, and 450 ideas were submitted. And from there, it was whittled down and narrowed down to the 17 that we were submitted with. And the winners are, if you'd like to know, grant local governments the authority to build broadband infrastructure in order to partner with private providers and provide additional funding to help close the digital divide. That's one of them. The second one is to secure federal and state aid directly to municipalities to offset the lost revenues due to COVID-19 pandemic. The third is to expand initiatives and funding for local economic development. The fourth one is to revitalize vacant and abandoned properties with enhanced legal tools and funding. The next is increase state and federal funding for affordable housing, create a permanent and adequate funding stream for local infrastructure needs, provide funding to keep aging water and sewer systems financially solvent today and viable for the future, to ensure state funding for any new state-mandated benefits for municipal employees, to improve statewide funding and support the LEO training focused on use of force, mental health, and de-escalation skills, to increase public safety grant funding and expand allowable uses, to extend notification timeline for any changes to sales tax revenue disbursement, and finally, to reduce pressure on property taxpayers by expanding locally controlled options for revenue generation. So I thought it was interesting that 8 of those were the ones that we had selected as well. And there is a conference April 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So I will be attending that conference virtually as much as possible. So looking forward to it.
Great, thank you, April. And I'm not surprised that internet one is in there. Really, we complain about it sometimes, but at least we have service here with internet. But there are so many places in the state of North Carolina that does not, here it is, 2021, and you got places that, doesn't have that option, which is really, really sad. And I think that's more of a state effort from the league and trying to help that, because it's just so many that don't, that it's really painful in some of those eastern counties and stuff. But thank you for working with that group, April, appreciate that. Is there any public here to be heard tonight?
There's not, and there were none electronically.
Okay, so, but I do invite the public. We are trying to, as we get better with the results of the pandemic and it kind of winds down, we are inviting the public to come back in person. If you got something, comment you want to make, we invite you to come and do that, as long as you use the website. So, it's open invitation, and I hope it's the first meeting in the month, the first Tuesday of the month. So, please feel free to do that. I will mention on the behalf of the public, one of the things that I had heard mostly from public in the last few months has to do with trash. And I haven't heard any in the last few weeks. I know we put some efforts together to do that, and I know that actually the group that the town staff is putting some things together on a monthly basis to help that, and I encourage the board to participate all you can in that, and also encourage the citizens. It's going to have to be a team effort to keep the trash. I've been riding around the last couple of weeks, and it looks like it's getting a little better. It's still got a ways to go, but just want to appreciate all the efforts put into that much so far. And believe it or not, I hadn't heard a lot from the public on it in the last few weeks, so that may be giving us an idea it's getting better. With that said, tomorrow, if they heard this, they may start calling me back, but do appreciate Kelly, the staff, and everybody that's kind of been working on that. And I know the public's been working hard. I know a couple individuals themselves that actually picked up trash in their areas, and I know the Boy Scouts has been doing some stuff too. So appreciate all that effort from the public. Consent agenda's next. As you know, there's 9, 10 items on the consent agenda. We'll pull any item that you wish to discuss in details. If you like, we'll pull it and we will vote on it immediately after. We'll discuss it and vote on it separately immediately after the consent agenda as a whole. There is some items that we have talked about in workshops before, so you may remember some of those things. But with that, do I hear any motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
I second.
Okay. We got a motion from Commissioner Sutton to approve and Commissioner Wilson to as a second. So if there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think it approved unanimously. I do want to, my computer cut off here. Let me get it, see if I can get it back going. Yep. I do want to read one of the proclamations that you just approved, and it has to do with Child Abuse Prevention Month. I know Wake County Health and Human Services is very involved in this, and they do a lot of work around, child abuse, and Child Abuse Prevention Month is a pretty active thing. And you may remember our previous mayor was involved in Wake County Human Services, and I'm sure they got a lot going on there. And our police department is involved in this a little bit from a standpoint of prevention and monitoring that. But we usually do this resolution every year during this month, and I kind of want to read it for the public. And it goes, proclamation of Town of Rolesville recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas preventing child abuse and neglect is a community responsibility affecting both the current and future quality of life of a community, and whereas child mistreatment occurs when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and do not know how to cope, and whereas the majority of child abuse cases stem from situations and conditions that are preventable in an engaged and supportive community, and whereas child abuse and neglect not only cause immediate harm to the children, but also proven to increase the likelihood of criminal behavior, substance abuse, health problems such as heart disease and obesity, and risky behaviors such as smoking. And whereas all citizens should become involved to provide a safe and nurturing environments for our children in all areas of their lives, at home, in school, and in the community, offering them the opportunity to grow up to be caring, contributing members of the community, and whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships created among citizens, social service agencies, schools, faith communities, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Now, therefore, the Town of Rolesville, Mayor and the Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the month of April shall be known as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Rolesville, and call upon all citizens, community agencies, faith groups, and medical facilities, elected leaders, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live. Very touching proclamation there, and I think nothing can be more important than, prevention of harm to children. As we can kind of do that as elected officials, our community as a whole, a very worthwhile proclamation there for that. So thank you, Board, for approving that a few minutes ago, and anything that, this is just the start of the month, the day's just the 6th, so we got a whole month to go. Any ideas, anything come up that you guys want to do this month in prevention of child abuse and neglect, just kind of let me know. So thank you, Board, appreciate you approving that. So we approved this consent agenda. The next item is, now we get into the meat of it, is a public hearing for the CIP, or the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. I think we got somebody here that will present that. Kelly, is that true?
Yeah, I'll introduce it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor and Board, tonight in front of you is a public hearing scheduled for the Comprehensive Transportation Plan that is titled Rolesville Moves Community Transportation Plan. As a board, you have seen this at your retreat about a month and a half ago, when we brought this forward with the first draft of the land development ordinance also. Tonight is the public hearing for this, and Allison Fluett of Kimley Horn is here to review it. You have a hard copy in front of you, I think, also. At the conclusion, if you are so amenable, it would be appropriate to go ahead and adopt Resolution 21R18, which was forwarded as a recommendation of approval on March 22nd by the Planning Commission, which would be essentially approving this plan and be the conclusion of this effort. Again, if you're ready to do that after Allison's presentation and taking public comment. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison.
Thank you.
Michael, being the tallest staff member, is here to read these monitors. Cannot see.
I can see that one okay.
I can see.
I think we're good.
That one's a little blurry, but I can see that. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Everyone's good?
All right, can everyone hear me all right?
No.
Check and verify if it's on.
Good tap on the mic.
Is this on now?
Tap on the mic.
No, here.
There we go. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak to you all this evening about the Rolesville Move Community Transportation Plan. So we're going to just take a little bit of a walk through the plan and thinking about the planning process, as well as our vision and goals and the public engagement that surrounded our plan development process. We'll highlight the land use context areas that correspond with our plan, as well as touching on our recommendations, going on into prioritization, and ultimately how we're going to move this forward into implementation. So first off, our planning process consisted of 4 main stages, starting with the collection of data and existing conditions. And it was during that first phase where we also sought to reach out to the public and work on the development of our vision and goals. From there, we went into a needs identification process, and this was for all of our different travel modes. We wanted to make sure that they were kind of working at the same pace along with each other, and kind of turning that into recommendations as we went. From there, we wanted to make sure that we had a implementable planning process, which we did by looking at this through a prioritization lens. And then ultimately, preparing the documentation and then putting it forward for consideration for adoption. So I mentioned our vision and goals. Just to talk a little bit more about the vision and goals and how we got to where we are. The vision and goals were developed based on coordination with town staff. We did have a dedicated steering committee for this effort, and so we worked hand in hand with them to also work on this vision and goals development, as well as other stakeholders and members of the public. So this was a fairly in-depth effort. And you can see the vision that was developed for the Community Transportation Plan up here on screen, and I'll go ahead and read it out. To enhance and improve Rolesville's transportation network by identifying needs and creating accessible mobility options for all users. And to support that vision, because visions are somewhat by definition a little bit broad and kind of overarching, we have 4 goals. And those goals are really important because not only did they help us really chart the course for what we wanted to do, but they also ultimately guided the development of our recommendations and how we sought to prioritize projects as well. So just walking through those goals, first we had safe and secure, which means improve the safety of the transportation system by providing secure facilities for all mode users. Accessible and connected, which means provide a well-connected transportation network that enhances access to key destinations within Rolesville and throughout the region. Active and multimodal, which is providing mode choices by expanding the transportation network to include more opportunities for bicyclists, pedestrians, transit, and vehicular users. And finally, efficient and enhanced, which is preserving the existing transportation network through targeted recommendations that maximize benefits while minimizing costs. So I think what you can see when you take this in totality is that we really are representing a multimodal standpoint and also trying to think forward, even within these vision and goals, to something that's ultimately going to be implementable and something that actually advances some of the transportation needs here in the Rolesville area. So I mentioned public engagement, and I just want to hit a couple of the highlights of our engagement process. The communication about the Community Transportation Plan was really crucial to successful engagement, and we did that in a couple of different ways. One of the big ways that we did try to reach out to folks was through regular newsletters. We put together newsletters every couple of months to help us document major milestones as well as highlighting upcoming events. And those were sent out, they were publicized, and also were made available on the town's website. Now, the website, of course, houses those newsletters, as well as along the way, housing interim documents that we might have put together, like our existing conditions report, our draft recommendations, and then now our draft plan. And this was really updated throughout the plan development process. Now, the first thing that we did as we reached out to the public was in the form of a survey. And as you can see from the dates, the May to June timeframe, we were well in the throes of our COVID restrictions. So everything that we did was virtual as a part of this process. But we did get a healthy response from our first survey, and really wanted to focus through that survey on informing plan goals, identifying concerns, and gathering feedback about how to enhance mobility. So just a couple of highlights that I'll point out here. We asked the question about what folks thought about the past 5 years of transportation here in the Rolesville area. And we actually saw that there was an overall improvement indicated from many of our respondents, which is notable. You don't often see that. However, when you think back to when this was completed in mid-2020, and you think about the past 5 years, that actually includes the completion of the Rolesville bypass. So you all were in a little bit of a unique place where you did have a major facility come online. And what we saw through the remainder of this survey was that there continue to be additional needs that folks were identifying that needed to be addressed from a transportation perspective. Some of the new facilities that people really wanted to make sure resources were being dedicated to included new sidewalks and crosswalks. That pedestrian element was really heavily referenced in several different instances. Enhancing streetscapes, making sure that this is more than just a place where we travel, it's a place where we live. And thinking about that from how we actually make this a more inviting amenity for our communities. And then also maintaining our existing infrastructure. And I think this is actually a valuable one that we got that public recognition, because it's not in every community that the public acknowledges that, yes, we have to continue to devote resources to maintaining what we have out there so that the current system stays strong. And then we also looked at some of the travel modes to really start to understand how easy is it for folks to get along and get to some of their destinations by all of these modes right now. And by far, the ease of travel by car was number one. It's the easiest, according to our respondents, compared with some of the other modes. And I think that really helped us understand that, again, that multimodal component, thinking about how to travel by walking, by biking, other ways that we want to get to our destinations is just going to continue to be important, and identifying those gaps that we have in our system. So that was our first phase of public engagement. And later on in our process, we had a second phase of engagement as well, because we wanted to have that chance to kind of come back to folks as we'd taken everything that we'd heard from the beginning and really transition that into the development of our recommendations. So we reached out for this second phase in a number of different ways. This was advertised via social media. It was up on the town calendar, a series of email blasts to folks that are signed up with the town, as well as I mentioned, those project newsletters. And we actually tried to engage in a few different ways too, because there was a lot of things to take in with all those different recommendations. So we put together a narrated presentation where folks could come to the website and just learn about the process so far and what we had come up with, as well as a packet of recommendations that folks could actually look at their leisure. They could zoom in on the maps. They could see the lists of projects that were being recommended and spend some time with that. And then we even offered some office hours if folks had particular questions that they might want to come and follow up on, as well as a survey for folks to kind of come in and say, you know, how are we feeling about what we're seeing here? So based on all of that, thinking about that second survey's overview, we just asked some overall questions about how folks were feeling about those recommendations that I had a chance to review. And generally, we saw some very positive responses. We had 80% of our participants believing that proposed intersection recommendations definitely or probably would address future needs. 76% of participants saying that proposed thoroughfare recommendations definitely or probably would address future needs, and 72% saying that proposed collector street recommendations would address future needs. And I'll note that collector street one is the lowest of the three, but we actually had 20% of folks that didn't have an opinion on our collector streets, which is not entirely surprising. As you all know, our collector streets are kind of those middle ground roads between our residential streets and our larger thoroughfares. So sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to conceptualize how those are really going to impact your day-to-day. But we did also receive some specific public comments as a part of this process, kind of highlighting some of those particular areas that are being addressed, such as the Mitchell-Rolesville Road intersection, talking about things like Rogers Road, Burlington Mills Road, and then even noting some of those Collector Street recommendations as being a benefit to the community. So overall, we were very pleased with the feedback that we heard, and we felt like it just helped underscore that we were pointed in the right direction.
Allison, quick question.
Yes, please.
How many participants were a part of the survey?
For the second survey, we had 25 participants, so it was a lower number. We invited people to kind of consume all of the different materials that we had up on the website, and then if they wanted to participate in that survey, it was kind of more of a give us your reaction if you want to do so. So we had a higher response rate on the first survey. I think we were closer to, Kelly, I don't remember the exact number. I think it was somewhere between 50 and 75.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to just switch gears a little bit and talk about our land use context areas. And I know at our retreat presentation, we did talk about these in a little bit more detail. And really feel like these were a great chance to hear from you all, commissioners, as well as staff and the public, about the need to more closely correlate our transportation and our land use decisions. That was really the genesis of the land use context areas and how we sought to develop them and include them within this planning process. So we developed a land use and transportation integration strategy that resulted in a series of context areas, which you can see up here on screen and also in the report where they're explained in a little bit more detail. And one thing that I think is important to note here is that these directly contributed to the complete streets content that is being developed for the LDO. So you guys are certainly in the unique position of having your CTP and LDO happening concurrently, and I think this is one place where we were able to take advantage of that and have the two documents really coincide with one another. One thing that I just wanted to point out that is a small change from where we were during the board retreat was we made a small change to the open space that was noted. This was just based on some new town property, I believe, that was added to your open space areas. And so we just wanted to note that as you all were looking at that, that was a slight change that in compared to the previous presentation that you saw. So now I'm going to switch gears again to our overall recommendations. A little bit of background about our process. We had 3 major steps that we were going through to identify these recommendations. First, referencing the inventory of existing plans. There are a lot of existing plans out there. Obviously, this isn't the first CTP that has been done for the area, but even beyond that, we were able to look at some regional tools such as the Campo Metropolitan Transportation Plan, as well as the Northeast Area Study, which is currently under development, and other things such as the Main Street Vision Plan and the Comprehensive Plan. All of those were really invaluable tools for us. But then we needed to cross-reference those plans. It's one thing to have them, but we need to make sure, how are they talking to each other? Update and really reconcile those. So we tried to identify any places where there might be disconnects, and then really dial in on those particular locations as we came into our recommendations development. And then finally, identifying additional needs, because we know that we want to look at data as it is now. So understanding some of the current conditions of how is congestion in the area, how is safety in the area, and also projecting those things out into the future. So we did use the region's travel demand model as a tool to help us think about this going out into the future. Also, other considerations as we're putting all of these things together are looking outside your jurisdictional boundaries. We need to be sure that we are able to connect to the existing and proposed transportation systems in your neighboring jurisdictions. So to do that, we looked at the Wake Forest Comprehensive Transportation Plan, the City of Raleigh Streets Plan, and also, as I mentioned, that Northeast Area Study, which I'm sure you all have heard some presentations about that already. But that is a multi-jurisdictional effort that Rolesville is a big part of. And so we've been in close coordination with the folks updating the Northeast area study so that hopefully they could get the best intelligence from our planning process and incorporate it into that larger regional effort as well. Just one thing I'll note about this is as we were putting together all of these recommendations and just looking at the current conditions, we're looking at this from more than just our town boundaries. We look beyond the town boundaries to include the ETJ as well as your urban service area, both your short-range and long-range urban service area. And this expanded service area, we're looking out into the future quite a bit when we're thinking about a community transportation plan. So that does help us understand how some of these transportation impacts are going to look beyond your boundaries and also more responsibly plan for some of the future growth that is coming to this area. So I'll just touch on some of the recommendations themselves. First, those collector street recommendations that I mentioned a minute ago. So when we think about our collector street recommendations, this is really one of the two main components of our roadway network that we're going to be talking about. We have these collectors here, and then we have kind of our larger scale roadways, our thoroughfares that we talk about. And the collector streets are those lower capacity roads that serve the movement of traffic from local streets to the thoroughfares. And they provide enhanced connectivity while minimizing impact to environmental features. And that's something that I think is really important here. So you can see the orange solid lines that are on this map that show us some of those existing collector streets that are already present within our study area. And then you see those dashed orange lines, which are the proposed collector streets that are being talked about for the area. Something to note here is you all are absolutely in the path of growth. More than likely, most of these proposed collector streets will come as a part of development. And so it is important to note that when we're talking about collector streets, we're really more interested in the endpoints of our collectors. We're less interested in how they get there. That gives us a little bit more latitude as you do work with the development community to make sure that the essence of the connection is being made. However, I will say that as we were making these connections, we actually did vet them, looking at property lines, looking at other environmental considerations to be sure that there was a realistic connection that could be made in any of these locations, because we didn't want to be recommending something that couldn't actually be implemented. So those are just all things that we think about as we're putting together these collector street recommendations. And then, of course, we have our thoroughfare recommendations. And the thoroughfare recommendations, they propose new linkages, and of course, they also enhance our existing connections throughout the town. And what you can see here is that what we're doing is really prioritizing active modes of transportation and also balancing the future growth of vehicular traffic. So we're not just developing a map here that says this will be 2 lanes, this will be 3 lanes, this will be 4 lanes. But what you can see with the different colors that are on here is that they actually all correspond to kind of thinking about the entire right-of-way. What does the corridor need to look like? So in each one of these, we are considering the bicycle facilities, the pedestrian facilities, the presence of curb and gutter, the number of lanes, and the potential inclusion of median. So all of those things are being thought about within each of these thoroughfare corridors as they're being recommended. You can see a couple of the capacity additions that are on here. A couple of examples would be Burlington Mills Road and Averett Road. And then there's also a couple of new location facilities that I want to call everyone's attention to. One being the Jones Dairy Road extension, and another being the Fowler Road extension. And I'll just mention a couple of things about each one of those. First, for the Jones Dairy Road extension, there are 2 possible alignments that are being shown for the Jones Dairy Road extension. So it is not recommended that both of those are ultimately implemented, and this is noted in the document. But right now, there have been ongoing conversations between the town and a development that is in that area, and just understanding that more than one alternative may need to be proposed as it goes through environmental review to make that connection. So both alternatives are currently out there right now, and we've had those discussions about how best to move that forward, but that's just kind of more of an FYI. Also on the Fowler Road extension, something to note that is also referenced in our document in a few different places is that further study is going to be needed on this road. It's a pretty long extension. We all know that there are some topography issues in that part of town, and so we're going to need to have an additional study that has been recommended to understand the constraints, a more detailed alignment, and the cost of that roadway. So that's just something to note. I will also note one change to this map that has been made since you all saw this as part of your board retreat, and that is to the section of Rolesville Road from Fowler Road south to Mitchell Mill Road. That was previously shown as a 4-lane road, and it has been actually taken down to a 2-lane road with a 2-way left turn lane, a sidewalk on one side, and a shared use path on the other side.
I'm just going to have to ask you to repeat that if you don't mind.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
ma'am,
I
absolutely.
just asked you to repeat it, that's all.
So the section that I would call your attention to is Rolesville Road from Fowler Road down to Mitchell Mill Road. And that cross-section has actually changed since your board retreat. It was shown as a 4-lane roadway recommended, but we've actually taken that back to a 2-lane road with a 2-way left turn lane, with a sidewalk on one side of the road and a shared use path, so like a greenway essentially, on the other side of the road. So just a little bit of background on that. You all have,
Two-way left turn.
pardon?
What's the two-way left?
A center turn lane.
Oh, okay. So it's actually 3 lanes with...
It's actually a 3-lane road, yep, that's right.
Do we have residential development approved in that area? I know we've looked at some stuff. We do.
Yeah.
Gables.
And,
That's a standard of building too.
okay.
That's correct, and that was part of the conversation that was undertaken, but we also did go back and look at the future travel volumes, and even with some of the new growth that has been projected in that area, we're still looking at travel demand volumes even in our future years that don't look like they're going to rise to the level of needing a 4-lane road in that section. So we felt comfortable about taking it down. A couple of other considerations that we thought about as we changed that recommendation were that we wanted to avoid a bottleneck situation. As you all can see, when you look north of Fowler Road, we also have a 2-lane recommendation going on there. And so we wouldn't want to invite more folks to come onto the southern section and then neck it down as we're actually getting into the center of town where there's increased traffic pressure. So that's one more consideration. And then I will also note that with that provision of the multi-use path on one side, the greenway type facility, we're trying to give other options for folks to travel along that section of road. So I just wanted to point that out. That is the only change from the last time that you all saw this, this map.
So does that take in, I'm sorry, does that take into future consideration of new construction?
Yes,
New
it does.
developments, I should say? So you're going from 4 to 3 with 2 left turns and just one main road going, I'm not sure if that's east and west or whatever. How does that not cause more traffic? That's where your
So-
bottleneck would come with just one lane, right? I'm probably missing something, so I'm not really seeing it.
So the future facility that we're recommending now is essentially going to be 2 travel lanes and then that turn lane in the middle, which as you all talk to developers, that can either be just an open turn lane or it could be turn pockets. And that just kind of can come with how the development is ultimately implemented in that area. But I think where your question may be going is that there is new growth coming into that area. There's residential growth being proposed on both sides of that road. We tried to take that into consideration as we projected out what the future traffic volumes would look like. And we were still pretty far under the number, kind of the capacity threshold number that would actually merit that going up to a 4-lane road.
So how did you do that, though? Like, how did you kind of forecast the numbers?
That's right.
Of the develop? Okay.
Yes, that's right. We had actually, earlier on in this study, we had looked at all of the recently approved or even proposed development plans along the entire Averett Road, Young Street, Rolesville Road corridor, because we knew that that was a focal point for this area for growth. And so we wanted to be sure we were able to get a little more specific, a little more detailed with forecasting what the traffic volumes might be. We have the travel demand model, which is kind of that tool for the whole region to forecast growth, but we wanted to be sure that we were accounting for everything that was happening right there, because we knew that there was a lot of pressure in that area. So even with all of those things kind of taken into consideration, we still felt that the volumes were at an appropriate level, that we could maintain that 2 travel lanes with a center turn lane.
That surprises me, because we have that road, the 2 travel lanes and a center turn lane in front of my subdivision directly across the street here, which is Wall Creek. And we have 90-some homes in there. We've got a lot more homes than 90-some homes approved in that area. If recollection serves me, my recollection right, it was over 200 homes that we approved.
Kayla's Farms.
Yeah, and you also have the point right above that. I mean, the point's going to feed into that too.
Yes,
So
and that
yeah.
surprises me, that does not dictate a 4-lane road.
Well, another point I'll just note, because I think it's important to remember, is that the section of Young Street that actually goes through the center of town is showing higher congestion levels than what can be accommodated by a 2-lane road in the future. However, we are still recommending proceeding with that 2-lane section because we know that that's taking you through the heart of Rolesville, and any widening of the road in that location would rip out some of the cultural features and other proposed developments, and any of that kind of small town feel and character that the Main Street Vision Plan recommended in that area. So you can see some of the other north-south connections that have been tried to put in place were done so somewhat intentionally to try to help alleviate some of the pressure off of this road, because it is right now your primary artery north-south, and it does need some additional help from some of the surrounding facilities.
If I can direct a question to the town manager and the town attorney. At the end of this public hearing, we're going to be asked to adopt a transportation plan resolution 2021 R18. And I understand that, but I also understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're just adopting a resolution that can be changed and altered in the future.
That's right. It's a legislative decision. It could come forward again for amendment or revision at the board's wish and will.
Okay, then I'm okay.
May I ask one question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, April.
On that section right there of Young Street that you're talking about?
Yes.
You said that there's a lot of pressure on that street right there, and I believe I saw somewhere in here that it falls in a range of, was it 0.5 to 0.85 or something along those? Okay. Where on that, do you know where in that range that area of roadway falls?
I don't know off the top of my head, and I apologize, I don't have that number handy. I can look that up and provide that to Kelly, and he can furnish that to you all.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering if it
April,
was
I'm
going to be
guessing
on.
it's at Cedar Lakes.
You thinking what?
At Cedar Lakes, right
was
across
thinking
from the
that too.
church, right in that area there. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm Young Street right in front of where my development. I
Oh,
want to know
no,
what, how much.
you talking about West Young Street or East Young Street?
I'm talking about
You're talking about.
She's talking west.
West Young Street. That's
Okay,
where I'm talking
okay.
about.
And I'm
Alright.
thinking east.
Yeah.
But I think you were talking about West Young Street pretty much, and, okay, yeah, more like West Young Street. I'm just a little amazed. Did you take into consideration what Wake Forest is doing as well?
We did.
Okay. That was a concern. Okay.
You know,
All right, you're the expert, so we'll see.
One thing I want to mention, and I think we talked about this a couple times. I know we talked about it with the board, at least. You know, and I was really, really glad we doing these studies and doing UDO, and also, we're able to do this transportation plan at the same time, because I think they all fit together. And the final piece that I've talked about before has to do with the comprehensive land use plan. So I want to make sure that we take a look at the comprehensive land use plan, and now that we know we're going to have a 2-lane road there in some areas, what do we need to do to comprehensive land plan to prevent it getting worse than what it is today? In other words, I kind of look at this transportation plan no different than a sewer plan. And you can't put houses in if you don't have enough capacity for sewer. And I think some of the board members want to think of the same way as roads. We don't want, for example, more townhomes go down there where, it's just going to make it worse. And we need a comprehensive land use plan to kind of set on top of of this transportation plan. And we don't have any, in other words, it's very difficult when, you see in the plans that we allow, 8 units per acre or something in an area that the roads don't support that. And I think that's what we really need to do is to make sure, if we're going to put a 2-lane road in there, then anything in the future may not be 8 units per acre. It may be something less, less dense to keep it from, just keep piling on, because I kind of see it as keeping piling on thing. So, I know we got to get this over with first, but I really think, now that we have we know what the transportation plan is going to look like, at sometime in the near future, we need to take and tweak those areas that is limited in being able to put roads in. We can't put a 6-lane in, as you said, in some places, you can't get the 2 in there. So what do we need to do to design our town in the future to keep from overloading what you have, laid in front of us? I don't know if that's, if you can help with that, with recommendations or whatever, but we need the right professionals, I think, doing that.
And I think we kind of stick ourselves in a box. If you say 2 lanes at this point, and I know the attorney mentioned we could always come back, but if I'm a developer and I'm looking at this is what's in my information, and then you want to change it once I've come to you with a proposal, that's not good game. So I feel like it makes more sense to widen it, to say up to a 4-lane road, then you leave in a 2-lane as an option. But then they'd have to come to us and we'd have to agree to what needs to go out there based on what's happening at the time. Instead of us locking into a 2-lane and then we're like, we really need a 4-lane road there. That's my concern.
And then I have one more
As a
question.
developer, that is my concern too. I mean, I'm dealing with a situation right now on Rogers Road where we have 3 lanes, but the developer, if this particular developer wants to move forward, we know he's got a 4-lane that section. All right, by adopting this resolution, in no way prevents us from making the developer widen the road for his development or her development in order for it to be approved by us. Am I correct?
I think was Town Clerk leaned over to me and said, if you, this is the consultant's recommendation, staff's recommendation. If you want to modify tonight, you certainly can. And you still approve with that modification, if that's of interest to you. You've heard the recommendation, but you also have some thoughts. And Mr. Wilson, I think if you want to hold the developer accountable for the greatest extent possible, you should make sure it's in the plan.
I agree. So I think that this plan needs to come back to this board with the verbiage that says just that this board has the right to hold the developer responsible for road improvements.
Well, I think you do that already with the adoption of this plan. What you want to do is make sure the roads are right.
Okay.
And so if the discussion right now we're focused on, maybe,
No, you're fine.
if the focus is on the Fowler South on Rolesville Road, and I'm hearing that you want to turn back to what was originally presented based upon your interests, then you should, if you adopt tonight, you should adopt with that amendment. And then we would make the change in the plan, and then that would be used for the balance of that area down there. So it is appropriate for you to make changes now or prior to adoption of this, if you're interested.
And I would just
Yeah.
clarify that if you chose to move forward with what Mr. Arnold is saying, it would result in a modification to this map, which obviously talks about an overall cross-section for that section of road. We actually have a project sheet where we kind of go into a little bit more detail for this road as well. So we would then offer that clarification on that page as well, which would show the expanded 4-lane cross-section if that was the action that you chose to take, with a modified right-of-way that corresponded to it.
I'd like a blanket amendment where we could change anything,
Well,
because we just don't know where these, well, we have an idea of where these subdivisions are going to pop up.
And I also have a
But
question.
you may have one that pops up that's got very little bit of road frontage and ingress and egress, but it spreads out behind. And that's going to take some study.
But really, the road got to be the whole thing. I mean, you
Yes.
can't have 4 lanes, 2 lanes, 3 lanes, it has to be the, whether it's, be a problem with developer or not, if you're going to put 4 lanes, the whole thing needs to be 4 lane. You can't, you can't have one developer 4 lane and the next one because, of topography or something, do a 2 lane and it's just going back and forth like that. That serves nothing but bottlenecks, So, I think we need a plan, if whichever one, the majority of the board want to go with. My only question is, what was we holding them to the standard today, the ones that we approved? Was they looking for the right of way to put a 4 lane in already, or?
That's what I thought. I thought they were paying
Sounds like
for
4
it.
was there and there was a revision.
I guess my question really is, when, I believe it was 4, and I think that one of the developers was contributing to that cost, or, so
So it was
that's
4?
sort of like a question. Yeah, it was 4, but there was a study done
No,
for 4 lanes, so I'm trying to figure out what change. And I don't think that was you who did that study, but it was done and it was recommended for 4, but now it's going back to 2. So again, that's why I initially asked the question, when you're going from 4 down,
It was approved for a 3-lane.
with a bicycle lane or something like that as well?
What was approved when we say it?
The Kalis
Right.
was approved for a 3-lane.
So it wasn't
That's
in the
Young Street,
previous
though.
transportation plan to be a 4 lane?
That's right.
It's just in your
It was
first
in a
model?
previous version of this plan.
So you
Correct.
would, so it really never was a 4 lane? When you're telling us that it was a 4 lane, it was just in your mind
Right,
to
what,
start
the
with?
presentation you all previously saw had it as a 4 lane, but
Right.
it was
I know I
never
saw
in
it
an
somewhere.
adopted plan
So we're
as a
really
4
not
lane.
going from a 4 lane to a 3 because we never really
We're
did
talking
that.
about 2 different streets.
No, I think we're
I
talking
need
about,
clarification. You said Young Street. You said Young Street.
It'll be
We were on
Rolesville-
Fowler
Rolesville
Road.
Road.
So I'm confused.
You're on
Which
the other
street are we
end.
talking about?
We're back on to,
We're on Rolesville Road,
Rolesville
from
Road.
Fowler Road down to
Mitchell
Mitchell
Mill.
Mill.
This blue part.
Down, right from
Then I'm
the
confused.
blue dot straight south.
because I thought we were on the other end,
Down to
more or
the-
less
the
by,
yellow dot. No, yeah, blue dots.
where Calvin's Farms is going. So where are you at exactly? Which road did we, I'm sorry I asked the question, but I was a
No,
little
no, it's a
confused.
good
Because I
question.
thought it was 4,
Needed that, though.
3 in a bike lane or something like that, or a turning lane or something was in there. But the 2 is what really startled me, because I think there's going to be a lot of traffic.
So the particular section that we're talking about is Rolesville Road, only between
It's this one here.
Fowler
They've changed this
and
Rolesville
Mitchell
Road.
Mill.
Okay, so you're going away from
It
Roseville
was to
High
be
School.
wider. It's to be
Right.
So
close
Fowler
streets.
in this way, okay.
Yes, south
And that's from
to
4 to
Mitchell Mill.
2.
Yes, in our previous plan
3
that
to
we
2, I'm
presented
sorry.
to you all in maybe February, I guess it was, we showed that as a 4-lane recommendation. So in kind of the draft of this. And then following that time, we looked at that section again to see if the 4-lane was warranted, primarily because of the bottleneck potential that could occur, knowing that the section from Fowler north So the Young Street portion is going to remain a 2-lane. So that was the primary concern that was kind of put forth was, are we creating a bottleneck condition by inviting, more?
Four to come into two.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And from that, we arrived at the conclusion that the traffic levels were not up to the capacity thresholds that we felt would warrant having that 4-lane section down in the lower, the section between Fowler and Mitchell Mill of Rolesville Road. So that was where we landed. And again, as Mr. Arnold mentioned, the current development, I believe, is operating on a 3-lane. Is that correct? That is what they have currently set
So we're
aside.
only on that side of town. Nothing else is being changed, like on the west,
Exactly right.
Young Street and.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, that's the difference too, because see, I'm looking at Rolesville Road from Fowler down to Mitchell Mill, and I'm thinking, why shouldn't it be wider to go to Mitchell Mill? But looking at the opposite way, the way she's saying is, if you're coming from Mitchell Mill, you see a 4-lane road, and you're gonna go up Rolesville Road, and you're gonna hit a 2-lane to go towards the bypass. So I didn't even think of it going that way. So that would cause an issue, I feel like, if it was wider going up that way. I just want to make sure we don't mess up the intersection down there at Mitchell Mill. That's all I'm worried about, because that's a major intersection there that we don't want to mess up.
You have reached an agreement with a couple of developers to participate in signaling out there
Right.
as development occurs, so that whole intersection will be re-engineered as development occurs down there, including a signal.
And I could be speaking out of term here, but the Callis Falls is a 3-lane, but there are also turnout lanes into that subdivision as well, right?
Correct.
Okay. A right turn.
And the gap.
Yes. Okay.
So it's right in and right out for Callis?
Well, it's got like a
Full movement,
full movement.
just like out here on Main Street as you know it now. There's a center lane for turning
Right or left?
in lefts, and then there's 2 travel lanes.
Right, just like Main Street now. Yeah.
No bike lanes on the road, sidewalk on one side, multi-use path on the other side to keep bikes off.
So no bikes at all?
Keep
In the
on
path.
the road.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Use the bike, to encourage use of the bike path.
Okay, I stand corrected, because I was on Fowler Road, and I was like, hold up. Because in green, it says 4 lanes for
Yes,
Fowler
yeah.
Road, so I was on a different section. But yes, that's what we agreed to. I agree. That, to me, is not a change from what we had before, except that little section you're referring to. I'm with you now. But I just want to make sure the picture that we paint to developers before they come is clear, and we're not going, okay, pull the rug up from under you when you get here, changed our mind. That bothers me. That's all I'm saying.
But I think that instead of having the option of making it 4-lane, which is going to end up hurting us as a town, then it should stay the way it is since the whole roadway is mapped out.
Right, for Rolesville Road, I agree. I was on Fowler with my 4-lane, I was on a different road. Sorry about that.
Gotcha.
I just want to make sure we're clear, though, what we're communicating is what this board is seeking to happen. Not for them to show up and then go, wait, we don't want that. That's my concern.
So when the plan gets adopted, and development comes in, that's why I was trying to address Mr. Wilson's thoughts, was this is the plan the development must build to at that time. So if it's a 2-lane, if there's a stretch of 2-lane and it calls for a 3-lane, they must build a 3-lane. Does that make sense?
The turn lane in the center.
We're going to require TIA anyway.
That's correct.
So we're safe as long as we require TIA. Okay. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Apologies if I caused any.
Yeah, I was on a whole different section of the map, like.
I had one other question. It's kind of related to this. The Main Street showing the 2-lane divided with a raised median from the bypass in on Young Street, from bypass in to Main Street. We're also calling that a 2-lane, it's basically a 3-lane road. I just wanted to float it out there I feel like that's a major coming into town road as well. And with other stuff we're looking to do on that about changing that possibly to something that has the raised median as well through there, if that would be an issue at all.
With the center turn,
Are you talking
Yeah.
about East Young Street?
Yeah,
A raised median on,
coming from the bypass to
to the main street, yep,
Coming into town.
coming into town.
what would,
As a-
what would be the purpose of that?
Just to give it the look of the same as Main Street, because you're coming into the main street or the main part of town. I don't know if there's that much.
What is the purpose of a median other than aesthetics?
To prevent turns.
That's what I thought, okay. So I'm not sure what the
limit
purpose of that
turns.
would be, other than what you're saying.
I mean, it's aesthetics, but it's also tying into, going into downtown. This is what it looks like from that major intersection coming into town. Because there's not a lot, right now, there's not a lot of breaks through there. You have Carlton Point, you have a church, you have potential on the other side.
I mean Cedar Lakes, not Carlton.
Cedar Lake, sorry, yep.
Yeah,
But kind of breaking that up,
Yeah, a different street. I was
yeah.
like, wait.
Trying to break up that three-road look, that three-lane look. Just, it's not just a wide-open road sitting through there. It's something to break it up with medians and
Yeah,
stuff.
it complements Main Street.
Yeah,
Eventually it will.
all right.
Leading into Main Street.
And you have that option also going north, but just right now, because I know that's going to be a main focal point going into our downtown right there. I know we can't do it north of Main Street because I live that direction. And I don't see, there's so many turns and this and that, everything else that they're getting added up through. There's no way you could do that now, but
But do you
right
have the-
now,
Do you have the width on the road to do that on that street?
it's calling for a three-lane right now through there, right? I mean, it's got a center turn lane, so you would have the width to do it.
We're talking about the section of Young Street.
We need a point, we need a point on this map.
So if you look at the map right now, the blue dot down to the bypass.
Oh, yeah, right, we could, yeah.
Yep,
okay.
Right here.
right there. Where New Bethel Church and all that is, all along
We've
there.
used this before.
That's why I didn't suggest it. But wait, it seems like that road the road there is wide, but it just seems like it's going to take away from it with the median in the middle. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's aesthetics, but is aesthetics worth the price of what you're going to have to pay for that appeal?
And is it going to slow down traffic? Because there are a lot of turns in there. And that, I guess a median would take up some of the turn space.
Right.
So then is
Yeah, I mean-
traffic going to back
Carlton
up?
Point, you have the church.
The chamber,
school.
EMS, and the New Bethel
further
parking
down.
lot.
And you wouldn't have to do it all the way up in there. I'm just saying like further back, like where it's still open, there's nothing really right there, just to kind of break that up as you're going through. I understand once you get closer to town, that's not going to be doable. There's no way. That wouldn't make sense because there's so many turn-ins. But like coming off the bypass, there's nothing. There's New Bethel's on the one side, and it's kind of like farmland on the other side.
But isn't
until-
that where the proposed new
Public
town
Works.
hall is?
That's why we want to make it look pretty.
Well, we still can, without having to call it out. I mean, I'm helping you as a developer.
We're designing things.
Yeah.
If you put that in, you will be building them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I want to, before I would say yea or nay on that, Paul, I want to kind of think about that a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Our consultant.
I just want to throw it out there. It wasn't,
Yeah.
just a food for thought.
I would also just offer something else
I'm not
for
feeling it. I get the
consideration on
aesthetics,
that
but I'm not
point.
feeling- I think it's gonna be more of a
In,
nuisance.
in some
the
plans
turns.
where we have recommended center turn lanes, we have included a proviso that the center turn lane could be substituted for a narrow median
Okay,
upon discretion.
okay.
And just kind of saying that it gives you that latitude, should it feel appropriate
Okay.
for that location. So that's something that you could consider, which would just be a small sentence addition.
But again, not all the way down from one
No,
end to the
no,
other. That's what I
no.
thought you were saying.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that wouldn't, no.
That's so expensive.
No, I wouldn't, no, I would never.
And what that would do is, in any of the places where we have a two-lane left turn lane, it would essentially give you that same opportunity
Okay.
if later on you felt like that was a direction that you wanted to go as a town.
Okay,
And remembering that this street that he's referring to, or this portion of the street, pours into what will be the Main Street Vision Plan. So it wouldn't be off our rocker to say, hey, we want it to tie aesthetically to what we have there. So that would.
But you only have it once you get off the bypass, though, right? Just for a little bit, not all the way down to Main Street.
no, you wouldn't be able to get it to all the way
Right, so I'm
downtown.
like, at what
Yeah.
point are you connecting the aesthetics when it's so far apart?
No, he's saying all the way from the bypass to Main Street.
As much as you can. I mean, once you get close enough, though, we won't be able to, because of
Yeah,
the fire
that's what he
department and
was
everything else, yeah. But if we have that option, that's fine, too. I mean, we don't have to change the road, just as long as we have that option in there.
We have solved world hunger.
Now, I'll say, when you get into the discussion of medians, particularly on a state-maintained roadway, NCDOT likes to weigh in on medians, particularly if you're talking about a true narrow median, or you're talking about a larger landscape median. They have some pretty distinct ideas about what the widths of those should be. So that's just something to keep in mind. But again, kind of a more general sentence, I think, could at least allow you to open that door.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other further questions from the group? I'll use the mouse from now on, I promise.
So we know what road we're on.
Any additional questions?
All right, I've just got a couple more slides. So just kind of noting, this is, of course, a multimodal plan, but we're in a little bit of a unique circumstance, and I think a good opportunity here in the town of Rolesville, because you all are currently planning to update your Greenway plan here in the near future, and you've also been awarded an NCDOT bicycle and pedestrian planning grant specifically for the preparation of a comprehensive bicycle plan. So we didn't do a lot of work within the CTP as it's currently shown, looking at off-street connections for bicycles and for greenways. That is something that once the Greenway plan is completed and that comprehensive bicycle plan has been completed, that you'll have the opportunity to bring those two plans kind of in concert with one another. And I think you have the particular opportunity with the comprehensive bike plan to look at those linkages between your off-street network and your on-street network that we've proposed here within the CTP. So just think about that. I'm sure you will be hearing presentations on those two plans as they progress. So finally, I'll just touch on our project prioritization, which, as a reminder, we're talking about our thoroughfares when we're talking about project prioritization, because these are going to be the places where town money may ultimately may need to be sought, or that we may be looking for state or federal funding assistance to move forward. So this prioritization process is important for a couple of different reasons. First off, it's a communication tool. This is something that you all can look at the results of these prioritization exercises that have been undertaken here and talk to the folks at Campo, talk to NCDOT, and help them understand what's really at the top of the list and what's a hot topic for consideration here within the town of Rolesville. And they also serve as a support for decision-making for the commissioners and for the planning board. So this is certainly not something that is meant to dictate decision-making, but is just a tool in your toolbox as you ultimately think about what the best path forward is for the town. So we reviewed these criteria in detail during our last presentation to you all during the retreat, but just as a reminder, we arrived at, in conversation with our steering committee and town staff, at a set of 8 different evaluation criteria that kind of tried to carry forward. I mentioned those goals earlier. All of those goals are represented here within our evaluation criteria. And then the numbers that you see here actually represent weighting values that were assigned. So these are a combination of quantitative and qualitative metrics using data that's readily available. So hopefully this is a tool that can continue to be updated by town staff on into the future. And this was ultimately turned into an action plan. So this helps translate our prioritization process into our logical next steps for the planning process. So you'll see that our projects are broken out into time periods, and they're not financially constrained. So if you're looking at Campo's Metropolitan Transportation Plan, they're actually matching up revenues with costs. That's something that's a lot easier for them to do because they actually receive the revenues. So for here at the town level, we're not looking at a financially constrained plan. So these timeframes are a little bit more on the aspirational side and are just going to help you all guide some of your decision making and think about which things may need to happen in what order. So starting first with some of our near-term recommendations. So this is the first 0 0 to 10 years. You see a couple of things, which I'll actually use the mouse to show, that have these little asterisks by them, South Main Street and the Burlington Mills Road realignment. These two projects are actually committed. They have funds allocated for them, so we did not prioritize them. They've already been moved to the top of the list. So obviously that they'll be happening here in the near term. But you can see that we're really looking at these core roadways. And I mentioned that support that our network needs to provide to the Averett-Young Rolesville Road corridor. And you see some of those improvements starting to happen and manifest here within the near term. In our midterm, we see that there are our two new location roadways that are present. So Fowler Road, as well as the Jones Dairy Road extensions are present here, as well as some of our other key facilities, and we're kind of starting to move out into a little bit more of the periphery of our town and into some of the other study area. One thing that I'll note is that these were all kind of taken into consideration, looking at current growth levels, understanding how we may grow over time. However, you all are continuing to be in the path of development. There may be specific developments that come online that will accelerate the need for these projects. So please bear that in mind. This is by no means intended to inhibit the acceleration of those projects, and in fact, we fully anticipate that some of these projects will be accelerated beyond what we're showing here. And then finally, our longer term projects, just again, thinking in terms of these thoroughfares. Really, these are more supportive projects as the area continues to grow. You see that these are primarily out in kind of the externalities of our study area, but are going to continue to be essential facilities as we do grow as a community.
How do you predict that so far out? Because by the time you get to 20-plus years, aren't you starting back over on South Main Street? Wouldn't the conditions dictate that, or it's just like the process?
So these that we're talking about here are entirely capital improvements, but I think what you're referring to is that there's going to be a maintenance cycle that goes alongside with all of these as well, and you're absolutely right. That is going to continue to roll as we go through here. So one of the things that will be considered as you guys talk to Campo, as you talk to NCDOT, is that any of these new capacity enhancements, new locations, what have you, they all come with that long-term maintenance cost too. So we have to be sure that we're understanding the true life cycle impact of a particular project as it moves forward. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to note. Just a quick recap of the document that you have in your hands. We do provide an executive summary to just give an at-a-glance reference of the main takeaways with the community transportation plan. And you see that our chapters kind of walk you through the story that you've heard this evening with our introduction, our existing conditions, setting the stage with our land uses, and then moving into recommendations and into that implementation. Our appendix does include a lot of our supporting materials, information about our public outreach as well, and then our prioritization process. So hopefully you all have had a chance to spend some quality time, a little bedtime reading with the CTP. And one thing I wanted to point out particularly, I mentioned it earlier, we do have 10 project sheets that were included as a part of the development of the CTP. These project sheets were intended as a kind of one-page at-a-glance reference for some of our key projects. Some of those key projects were identified by looking at the prioritization outcomes, so we wanted to be sure that we were capturing some of those more near-term projects and projects that didn't already have something kind of identified for them. So for instance, we did not create a project sheet for Main Street because it's so well represented within your Main Street vision plan. But they do include things like a project description, the land use considerations within the area, as well as some insight into the planned facilities, a representative cross-section, as well as the right-of-way. They'll be dedicated there, and a little bit more information about the length and the cost that is estimated. So just trying to have that at a glance again, so that that's something that you can speak with your constituents about, or that you can use as a tool to communicate outwardly as well. So with that, I appreciate your patience as I've walked through all of this, and I'm happy to take any additional questions that you might have.
You're a daring person.
Any questions for the board? I just want to say thank you. It's a good job here. A lot of hard work went in there. Only thing I have that I'm not very clear on is the Fowler Road extension is still in the plan, but you were saying that it may not be feasible to put it in there as a 4-lane, with cost and all. So if somebody comes in tomorrow wanting to put industry or something in that area, where we stand with that, being that it's in the plan?
Good question for the board.
And I'm happy to answer this, and then Kelly can jump in as well. So I think that we, especially when we're looking at one of our larger new location facilities, such as a Fowler Road extension, I think that one of the challenges that we have here at kind of the 10,000-foot level that we're at for a community transportation plan is not being able to get into that level of kind of detailed conceptual design that will really be needed to flesh out a new location alignment like the one that we're going to need for Fowler Road. So I think that one of the things that, as we talked, and we spoke with staff about this as well, was clearly identifying that a near-term next step needs to be moving that forward into a study dedicated to that roadway to help take some of those steps. Because I think, to your point, Mr. Mayor, it is going to be imperative to begin to better understand the characteristics of that roadway as there continues to be interest and growth from an industrial perspective and other perspectives that may impact that area. So we've kind of worked with the overall GIS and other data that we had at hand to develop the CTP, but I think this is definitely a next level study to look at that in a little bit more granularity. Mr. Arnold, did you want to add anything?
And that's a good answer, and just to add to that, remember last week in our budget preview, we talked about that we were proposing next year to go ahead and get started on that immediately.
Right.
Now, if tomorrow something happened and you adopted this plan, you would have to evaluate the viability of this in context of the proposal. It does call out for the 4-lane, but obviously there's a way you could modify that, probably by a short-term amendment to this, if you found so interested yourself, the board to do that, while you had this plan going. But the point is, we do need to figure this out.
Yeah.
See what's feasible in both contexts of the road, employment center, and uses.
Yeah, and that's the biggest concern I got, because really, from a employment center, we putting our eggs all in that one basket of that road being there.
Why are we picking that?
And, and if that can't happen, then we don't ever get an employment center, and that's why, we really get to.
I don't know if you can't. I think what we're saying is we need to verify, that's what the master comp plan calls out now. So what we're trying to do is verify that. If it is a can't, then we need to go through and identify that area. But that has not been verified. The comp plan has called it out. We really don't have anything that proves out the feasibility of a road or whether it makes sense or not. So that's why we need to verify that. We could go through an exercise ultimately with the comp plan amendment, to find other locations. Right now, what we need to do is verify this one, I think, while we can, and then talk about other locations potentially in the future if you want also.
Yeah, and I want, maybe get an expert involved, because my, just my experience from, if you want to call them industrial parks or whatever you want to call them, employment centers, industrial parks and all, they are very highly competitive. And There's hundreds of them here in Wake County that, someone can go and put, a business in there, industrial business, and they're very competitive, and they very much have to be shovel-ready type stuff. And Jackie, you know some of that from, your experience and all, that, they look at a place where it's good roads, good way to get in and out of their, their employment center thing, whether it's industrial park or whatever. And I just don't see, like I said, I'm not expert on, maybe you can get an expert involved, but I really don't see anybody pursuing putting anything in that blue area if they have to put a $10 million road in or something,
That's probably cheap.
Amazon will not come to a location like that,
I don't disagree with that. That's why there's economic incentives to help those kind of efforts. If you look at most of those industrial parks, they typically are funded, some of the infrastructure are.
They are,
through
yep.
incentives or through grants and such. So until we get that answer, we don't know what that solution is or how you do that. I don't disagree with anything you said, but I think we can get there other ways if there's a place that works in this corridor. Unfortunately, that's all we have identified in our comp plan.
Yeah, that's right.
So, we kind of got to get on with what we got and figure this out. And so that's why I'm kind of sensing, I believe it's urgent that we at least verify and have a plan in place that we can either pursue this through whatever mechanisms, put the infrastructure in, so then we can get to shovel-ready opportunity, or verify what's feasible in there and find other locations if there are that we can put in our comp plan in other ways.
Why was that area identified? Maybe I'm just ignorant to the
Comp
fact.
plan calls it out.
Why? I'm a why.
I'd have to go back and read it.
And the only reason I'm asking why, if we know, like, the topography is bad, or whatever the case may be.
I think I assume, if I were to, and I'd have to go back and verify all this, but it's adjacent to your 401 route bypass, so adjacency to transportation system is very important.
Okay.
I would say some of it is developable. The west end, I think, has an opportunity. It is potentially more difficult as you move east.
Move closer.
Yeah.
And there might be more opportunities in and around Young Street. It's that area between
Yeah.
Young and the east and west, some area that could be difficult to make the connection.
Yeah, I mean, if you could tag, you said it's close to the bypass. Well, it is, but even if it's 5 foot, you can't connect to it. So, technically speaking, you can't use the bypass unless you come out to one of the two ends of it.
But it does have at least 1, 2, 3 points of access to the bypass from other existing roads.
And when you look at our ETJ and what we've got left, it's about the only place we can put it.
What about in front of the high school? All this area? Am I missing something? I don't know. I just don't, if we're going to do a study, can we study more than just one area?
Yeah,
I think that's a good point.
I think it would
'Cause
make more
I'm
sense.
not sold that,
Look at our options. Look
That
at
would be a-
options.
So wait, why do you say that's not the best area? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just, I don't know all the details, but I think the topography is really bad
have
on
you,
that.
have you been on the bypass?
I have.
You see the big mountains you go by?
To get through that, blast through that.
I mean, that's what you're talking about, going over in those mountains. They're huge.
But wait, what area were you referring to? That area or further down Rolesville Road?
Now I'm on Fowler Road, the
I
road,
thought
the
so.
road that I was
Right,
talking
so
about earlier.
that's
it-
I don't
But
know.
you see the blue runs along the bypass,
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend, you keep on going on this tonight if you like. I don't know if we're going to get any solutions. But,
No, we won't.
We're going to start with the basics and we'll come back to when we get the proposal put together. We'll re-verify if this is the area you want to study before we go out and make sure we hit the target. I do think there's opportunities, some adjacency to this Fowler Road, east side and west side, that might be reviewed, like bubble areas that are adjacent to Lewisburg Road, or I'm not saying it right, Main Street in that area. So I don't know if we're going to solve it tonight, is what I'm trying to say.
We're not.
No, we're not.
We're not going to solve it tonight. and
But yeah,
do-
if we
deal
could
with
study
some
several options, I think that would make
things. We need to move
sense.
on.
Yeah, it'll be, I think we try and prioritize them because it will be a pricey study.
Yeah.
So we'll get into it. When we draft up the proposals, come back and verify with you all before we submit it out. See if we're getting close to target what you want to get.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? I'm going to call for the opening of the public hearing. And is there anybody from staff that want to do an additional introduction, anything?
No, I want, when you close, I'd like to make sure we have everything you lot in the plan, ultimately. So, but other than that, we're ready for, take the public comment.
Okay. I'll call for any comments from the public in favor. Do we have anybody signed up, Robin? Yeah, let's look and make sure nobody's over there.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, excuse the yawn. Thank you so much
Look for in favor or opposition, either one.
for that question.
I appreciate the discussion.
More public comment?
Hot. How many of you worked on this?
We had, oh
Like
gosh,
formulating and putting it together as one report?
there was probably about 3 of us that were primarily involved in putting it together into a single document.
Oh, I see these in your sleep, huh? I bet. Well, good job, Allison.
Got the map imprinted.
Yes, good
des-
information.
Despite my inability to describe it.
Hello.
I would have
Taking
to,
public comments, so go ahead
now
and
I can
step up if
reread
you
it.
like.
with better
Yeah, I mean,
understanding.
is this, anybody in favor first? Betty, are you in favor or opposition?
Of what?
The
plan.
The transportation plan.
I'm not in favor of developing anything yet.
All right.
You've got already taken care of.
Okay. So not hearing anybody that's signed up to speak in favor, then I'll take any comments from public in opposition. So welcome, Betty. State your name. We know who you are, but state your name and address for us, if you don't mind, please.
My name's Betty Freeman. I live at the corner of Averett Road and Jones Dairy, 524 Averett Road. When I moved back here in 2010, I had to wait maybe 1, maybe 2 cars to come out of my, go by my house to get out of my yard. The other day, I had to wait 30 minutes for almost 40 cars to go by my yard to get out of my driveway. And it's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse because you guys have already approved enough new housing down Averett Road to 98, and now the town of Wake Forest has approved quite a few houses on on Averett Road on the other side of 98. Somebody needs to provide some kind of way to have access to Averett Road if you live there. Time is money. And you're costing me money when I can't get out of my driveway to get to work.
Thank you, Betty. Anything else?
No, that's it. I mean, if you're going to develop, you've got to figure out a way that the people who live here, who pay taxes, can access the road.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's something we're trying to work on, make sure we put the road system in and then allow only enough to support
And
that.
there's one other thing I'm going to say too. You want to extend Jones Dairy to 401 Highway. Well, Rolesville used to be the second largest slave market in this country. The way you're going to extend Jones Dairy across to 401 Highway, you're going to have to do some serious research, and you can't do it with the state of North Carolina because they have no knowledge about this. Slaves are not considered to be people, so there's no records of it. But there are a lot of grave sites in that property between between Jones Dairy and 401 Highway.
Thank you for the information, Betty. Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. All right, was that all, Kelly? Was any more to speak?
This
Okay. All right. So I will close the public hearing. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the board for deliberations and considerations. We can ask any questions of the staff, or we can, do a couple things. I think the recommendation from the staff was to, resolve tonight, but if you prefer to do some more study or something, this is kind of up to you. So I'll leave it up to the board for consideration.
Mr. Mayor, but, as I understand it, any new development that comes, major development, will require TIAs, as they always have, which can change this if traffic impact supports it and cites it. So with that, I'll make a motion to adopt the Transportation Plan Resolution 2021-R-18.
Okay, we got a motion from Commissioner Wilson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion from Commissioner Wilson to approve and a second one from Commissioner Vilga. Is there any other discussion?
I just want it noted of the conversations we had about making the changes. I know adding a sentence, the study to be done. I just don't want that left out
Yeah.
because it's easy to forget.
I agree, and and it may be only important to me, but I don't want the comprehensive land use plan left out either. I really think we need to look at these areas. Now that we know what the road's going to be, we really need to look at these areas and see if we need to adjust some places where we put in some high density things or medium density, if you want to call it medium density or whatever.
I agree.
Because if the roads don't support it, then we need to change that. And David, I guess a legal question, something we have put in the comprehensive land use plan as, say high density and medium density. Is there any legal problem to change that back for logistical reasons in transportation and stuff?
No, 160D, just like 160A, requires the adoption of a comprehensive plan and that we continue to develop in accordance with it. Just like our comprehensive transportation plan, these are the underlying administrative policies that guide the staff as well as guide the board as some of the evidence that comes before you in quasi-judicial matters, as well as perhaps rezonings. Obviously, for a conditional zoning, certainly an applicant could propose something more than what the comprehensive transportation plan would provide. And that's something that you'll consider as a policy decision at that time.
Got you. Any other discussions?
I just want to make note of something. It may never happen, but you know how the point is going in behind Carlton Point, not Carlton Point, Cedar Lakes?
Would you speak into the mic?
Sorry about that. While this may never happen, just thinking of something that Paul had said in regards to the median on the road and also the amount of traffic that currently is on East Young Street. If it ever comes to light that a road is constructed for the other side of the point going on to East Young Street, I'm just curious, how do we address that with the roads? Do you know what I'm referring to, Kelly? Because the point is going behind Cedar Lakes, and I know that they're still trying to figure out another access road, so they have two roads in and out. That other road is supposedly, hopefully, will happen on East Young Street. So how does all this fit into the grand scheme of things? And it may never happen, so keeping that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think what she's talking about is what they call the north part of the point there that's on this side of the bypass that's kind of landlocked and
It's supposed
one
to
way
come through
in, one way out.
Genovesa. It's come Genovesa
Correct.
on the villages, right? On Virginia Drive.
So just pour
Well,
it
right
through
now
there.
it's going that way, but I know there was some talk still. I don't know that anything came of it, but if it ever happens and that second road does come, is constructed, it's going to come out on East Young Street.
Don't think it will. I think it's too close to the
Intersection.
intersection. Could be a right in, right out or something, but it would be closer to the intersection than that property we bought. That driveway is
That's right.
further than,
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get a curb cut.
yeah. Now, there is 2 other stub outs in that front of that neighborhood that,
Well, there's one in the back too, though. Right at the end of Genovesa, which is where they're going to be coming in and out of anyway, but maybe that is the only one, I don't know. But I was just asking, I'm just putting that out there, I don't know if it could ever happen, if it would make a difference, but would it impact the study at all?
No.
Okay. That's it.
And I don't think it will happen. You're going to see that, by the way. You asked for it to come back, and that's probably this summer.
For the site plan? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, just wanted to know.
yeah, so that's, I think, I was looking on here. I guess that's considered just a neighborhood connector in there, which you don't even show it in your plans anywhere. So
That's
neighborhood
correct.
connectors is not shown.
And neighborhood connectors themselves will be actually discussed within the LDO.
Right. You showed Virginia Water Drive, but that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to may I ask you, Allison, a question? I'm not certain I'm clear, but are you clear on what may be modifications if they approve this that are going to be included in this plan?
Read them out.
Do you mind, would you be amenable to hearing from?
Yes.
I'd like to hear that. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
They should have been part of the motion.
So I've heard 3 things that might merit some small modification of language within the CTP. So I'll read those out now, and you all can tell me whether you would like to modify any of what I have noted down here. So the first one was to add a statement noting that a 2-way left turn lane, or otherwise known as center turn lane, recommendation could be substituted for a narrow median where appropriate at the discretion of the town or a development as that comes online. So that was in reference to the earlier conversation we had about some of those cross sections that we have shown as 3-lane. Another notation that I had as a potential action item was a future revisiting of the comp plan to review recommendations within the community transportation plan and adjust if needed. Making sure that that makes sense. And then the third was we have already noted within the CTP that additional study will be needed of the Fowler Road extension to consider alignments, constraints, costs, et cetera, and to add to that language to note that the study may consider other industrial growth areas. Those were the 3 items that I had noted down.
Very good.
So I feel like one piece is missing that we talked about. So I think Jackie mentioned it earlier. He was saying, well, we're going to have a TIA anyway, and if the TIA warrants it, do we need to say that, or is that a given? That's what concerns me. If I'm a developer looking at this information,
The TIA requirements are set by the LDO,
okay,
so that's where that will come up, not in the comp transportation plan.
gotcha.
With regard to the edits that have been requested on this plan, while you have completed your public hearing, you don't have to have another public hearing. Just being the risk-averse town attorney that I am, I would ask that rather than taking action on this tonight, you adopt this, because it is a development ordinance, at your next meeting, once that language has been presented to the board, rather than a third party drafting it and it never coming back before you in its final form.
I like it.
Okay.
We pay you, so we like it.
Okay.
It's into our
And since I have a motion and a second on this matter, I can just table it and say no?
Admittedly, I don't remember the form of the motion. If it's just to direct the staff to make the change so that you can have it come back, or was it to adopt it?
To adopt.
Then
adopt
the
it, but I
motion
would
is,
like to
the
rescind
motion
my
is
motion.
pending, and it can be withdrawn by the, I think it can be withdrawn by the maker with the consent of the second.
Yeah, and I will rescind my motion based on legal advice, and we will adopt it or attempt to adopt it at the next meeting after the changes have been made. If Paul will rescind his second.
I'll rescind my second as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? Again, thanks for the hard work. Appreciate that. And
With that in mind, what we'll do is work towards the conclusion of this and put it on your May 4th agenda, assuming that we'll do an outline, highlight the sections, and make sure that you see those that are probably just a consent agenda item. If you want to pull it off at that time, the May 4th meeting is pretty full, but certainly we can get it all accomplished by then, right, Allison?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You
Appreciate
said that's
that.
May 4th?
Anything else? Thank you, Allison. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Allison.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. That was a short one for the night.
2 hours on that one topic.
The next one is item number 2, Cobblestone Crossing Sales Agreement, Main and Young Street, closing date. I think we've had a lot of discussion about this in the work session, Kelly. Any last minute comments you want to say about this, or where, did he get everything to you that you needed today and all?
Yes. So I think we are ready for your action. Mr. Burnham is in the room next door. If you'd like to bring him in, you can ask him any further questions. But at this stage, I think we are ready to have an approval of this. And Dave's been working with our attorney on all the closing documents. Is there anything else, Dave, that you would like to see done at this point?
No, you've covered this pretty well at your work session. I have circulated a form of a motion. You do not need a resolution, as you have already resolved to sell the property. This is merely a waiver of requirement 7B in the contract.
And I have the motion here that our attorney recommends. So, Mr. Mayor, I move that the town waive cobblestone purchase agreement section 7.B as to allow the town staff to proceed to closing in April in accordance with all other provisions of that agreement.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Commissioner Wilson to adopt or approve, and we got a second from Commissioner Sutton. As said, Keenan is next door if you want to bring them in, but if you don't have any questions, I entertain to move forward with the vote. Anybody got any last minute questions, anything? All right, if not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That was a,
I was saying aye, yes.
okay.
Sorry.
Any opposed? No opposed? Okay, I think it was an unanimous there, Robin. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Got nice work, board. I think that was a long one, so now we'll get to the next one. Item number 3, I see Amy coming in, finance and agreement, the municipal complex land. Assuming you're going to introduce this, Amy?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As we discussed at our budget work session, I think it was last week, we talked a little bit about the moving ahead with plans to finance the purchase of the land on East Young Street that's intended for a future municipal complex. So the first step in that process would happen tonight. And if you have a chance, you can look in the agenda packet. The memo that I sent to you outlines that process. So tonight is the first step of that process, and it's basically a resolution that would give staff the approval to proceed with procuring bids for the financing, as well as to go ahead and give notice to the General Assembly, et cetera, and set a public hearing on the potential financing for your next regular meeting on May 4th. So that's the actions for tonight. It's two things. One is the resolution, and then the other is to call for a public hearing for May the 4th. After that public hearing is when you have the option to actually take the action on whether or not you want to finance, given the bids and the agreement that you get back from your RFP. And then after that, of course, we would proceed with an application to the LGC should you choose to move in that direction.
So it takes 2 months to go through this?
It does, because it's a land purchase and it does require LGC approval. So you have to submit the application to them 28 days before their meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they require a while to have the staff review and prepare their agenda. So in order for us to make that deadline to get on their June meeting, we need to go ahead and start beginning our actions this evening.
Can you clarify for the public, Amy, which land this is for? I don't know that that's clear from the title.
Sure. So it's the land, I believe it's 406 and 408 East Young Street. It is 15 acres, 17 acres.
It's under contract with Mr. Vilga.
Thank you. Just want to clarify.
Certainly.
I'm good.
Any other comments?
That's it. So that's what's before you tonight is if you want to proceed, then would be to adopt the resolution and call for the public hearing.
Okay, board, item A in number 3 is a resolution 2021-R-19 authorizing and filling an application for approval for financing agreement pursuant to NGC 160A-20. This is not an obligation. It's more or less giving the staff permission to, take next steps. So it's up to the board to deliberate.
I believe in our budget session, can't talk, that Amy did a great job of laying this out and explaining it. So I do want to add that if anyone in the public does have questions like, what is this? They can go back and review that meeting. I thought it was very informative. So I am ready to make a motion to approve the resolution 2021-R-19, authorizing the filing on an application for approval of a financing agreement authorized by North Carolina General Statute 160A-20.
Thank you. Commissioner Sutton made
Oh, wait, is there another part I need to read?
Yeah, and include that.
And also call for a public hearing on May 4th on the proposed financing agreement.
I second.
All right, so Commissioner Sutton made a motion to approve both items A and B, and second from Commissioner Medley. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any? Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Appreciate that. You got your marching orders to take the next step cautiously.
I'll be starting tomorrow.
Cautiously, but you can take the next steps.
And on that note, by that May 4th public hearing, we should be ready to report out the due diligence on a property, and you'll have everything to be able to consider everything. So
That will be good.
Sounds great. Now, next item, we got a Town Clerk report, community group funding process of applications. I hear we do have a couple of those, is that right?
Good evening. It's not often I get to stand and actually see everyone. Yes, we do actually have some applications. We had several groups that were interested. Some chose to wait, but we have 2 that actually made applications. And it is the budget time, so now is the time to start looking at those applications. And why I'm standing before you is to ask that we formulate a committee to review the applications to make sure they're eligible. And then bear in mind, the process has been that we invite the groups to come before the board and speak to them. And the time frame is, like I said, within the budget.
Okay?
I did not include the applications. I thought that would be for the committee to look at first on the board's behalf. I also included a letter at your seat that was from one of last year's recipients saying what they did with the funds, and I hope to get the same from the other applicant.
Okay?
And who will appoint this
I
committee?
can do that.
Okay.
And I didn't ask, I hadn't asked anybody, beforehand, but if Paul and April is available to work on that, I would like to point you to do that, if they're all okay with that.
I looked at them last year as well. So that's fine.
Yeah, and right now, I think you got 2 or 3 to kind of look through, right?
We have two.
You have 2, okay. So do you guys have time to do that?
I can do it.
And bear in mind, during COVID, we can do these through Zoom meetings, if that is something you are interested in.
Great.
They Rolesville groups?
They have Rolesville affiliations. That is one of the stipulations to be eligible. And that information's on the website, but I'd be happy to forward that to everyone again.
Yeah.
And also, I will be coming before you for the same request for the advisory board applicants.
Yeah.
That will follow.
Yeah, and just for April and Paul, I think Paul was here when we did it, but I don't think you were here, April. There is some guidelines, if I recall, the board set to qualify, pretty much. So make sure you guys look through the guidelines and make sure they qualify, if you would.
And with that in mind, does the subcommittee do the interview, or does the whole board have to do the interview?
In the past, we have had the applicants come before the entire board for a presentation, but.
Do you all want that, or do you want to delegate that to the
Yeah,
subcommittee?
I think if it's an interview, I think April and Paul do the interview. If I was asking and I want to come to the board and just, introduce myself and what I'm asking for, I think that's good too. So,
We did, last
so-
time.
I don't think they
Sheila
came
looked
before
at
the
those,
board.
And we did we actually looked at them ahead of time to make sure they even
Qualified.
qualified for the spot. And we had some that didn't, so.
Right.
Kind of helped us with that ahead of time.
But they didn't come before the board in general.
No, because we didn't have any that were 501c3s.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is the subcommittee will be doing the actual interviewing and making a recommendation to the board.
yep.
That's what you did last time, it seemed like.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
I think that makes sense.
all right, thank you.
You got guidelines, so I ain't too worried about y'all going off the rails.
Next item, preparatory discussion prior to April 15th meeting with the Chamber Executive Board. How are we going to do that? Is that going to be virtual?
It is not. You can do it in person. I believe it is proposed to be here.
I'm sorry, what did you say, proposed to be?
Here in person. I don't know, Michael might come in and help me out here. So it is with them at 6 o'clock, I think, is the start time. And Michael, I'm saying that meeting is proposed to be 6 o'clock in person, one of the 2 rooms. We're going to broadcast it to keep it public. And I think we just want to make sure that we understand what you like to make sure, if there's anything specifically you like to have on the agenda. And we have, Michael's memo has a couple of items in there that you may want to have them review. Report on last year's activities or the current activities, reviewing the existing MOU as a group. Their 2021-22 work plan, and then kind of a brainstorming or them presenting potential other collaborative projects or new ideas. But if you have any other items you as a group would like to add, we want to hear those. And I hope to set the agenda probably before the end of the week, thereabouts, so you can have it in advance.
Mr. Town Manager, I remember last year there was some concern by some board members as far as how money was spent. So does this work plan include their budget?
We can ask that, right? We can have a review of their budget and their expenditures.
Yeah, I'm fine, but again, some board members may want this.
But is
I was
it
always
their
fine.
budget or is it the portion that the town contributes? Are you saying their entire budget or the portion that the town contributes, how that's being utilized?
I'd like to see how it intermingles, you know, I'd like to look at the budget.
Chamber, so the work program, the use of funds, town funds, and how it relates to their overall budget.
Yes, yes.
Both the statute
Matter.
and the MOU give you access to that information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so wait, I just want to be clear. So you're asking about their budget, or you're asking about the money that the town is giving?
Both.
The MOU includes both.
That's what the attorney just said.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear on it.
Yeah.
Will there need to be any revisions to the MOU this time? Is that is that going to be part of the discussion? Do we know if they ask for any revisions?
I think that'll be an agenda item. I've not heard, or we have not been part of that discussion, so I would assume they're probably going to bring that up to you and ask you that, or talk to you about that.
And then the only reason I bring this up is that I want us to be able to do it one time.
Yeah.
And get it over with.
I agree with you on that,
I
Jack.
trust that the chamber explicitly, I was a part of it and still am a part of it. Even though I don't attend the meetings, I have one of my people attend it. But I know there were people in this room last time that had concerns. So I just want to make sure we cover everything one time, get it behind us, and let them move forward. They are a valuable body, just like we are, and I don't want to be a deterrent.
And last year, we didn't have them come in here at that meeting, so it's good that they will be here to answer any questions or
Exactly.
concerns that comes up.
Exactly.
'Cause that was a big,
Yeah.
I think in person is going to be better.
yes, it was a big
Yeah.
issue, not being able to do that.
So is all the budget stuff mingled in with the MOU? Because I was thinking last year we segregated out into a different table or something, didn't we? Or
I didn't think it was. I thought it was just the money that the town gave,
yeah,
and
it's-
how it was allotted.
yeah.
And should this be here or there? So I think it was that.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
if
it
you're
does-
fine
it
with
does
that,
affect
if
your
you're fine
budget.
with that, that's fine.
If I-
I want to get it done.
Was Michael going to say something?
Or I could read the specific MOU section. Would you like to hear that?
Sure.
Sure.
As part of this agreement, the chamber is required to present a financial statement to the town upon request per provisions of NC General Statutes 55A 1624, highlighting chamber activities and showing how the funds received from the town of Rolesville are being used. The town may request a report from the chamber quarterly or biannually, depending on the desire of the town board.
Financial statement is the whole shebang.
So I mean, I think I would recommend you just cite that and ask for that.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, who's coordinating the meeting? Is that you, Michael? Okay. So just make sure you talk to Rachel. And then I think the other piece of it, we want to, as Jackie was kind of saying, we want one time, you know, what's the budget items for next year or this year, I guess you call it. So we can talk about those together and get those kind of an idea of how we're going to provide support.
And they already had mentioned when we met last time that they didn't anticipate, because I think somebody asked that question. Oh, you remember, Michael? Somebody asked that question, do you anticipate needing to up the budget again or something in the near term? And they were like, we don't foresee that.
Right.
So I know they had said that, so.
Yeah. Okay. Any other
It-
thoughts?
yeah,
Any other
it-
directions to Michael, I believe, is the ones that's going to be facilitating it or coordinating it. Any other thoughts to Michael that he can make sure we make part of the meeting? All right.
It would be my suggestion that you just take the MOU and just kind of say, could you respond to the MOU? The chamber agrees, they have four items they've agreed to do and to help the town's economic development efforts, so it'd be good to hear what that was that they did. And then anything else, but I'm sure they're going to want to talk to you about the next MOU, so we can get that done also.
And I know that they're going to talk about some of the things that they weren't able to do because of COVID.
That's right, and that makes some sense.
Yeah, looks like we're going to do this on tax day for all days.
Okay, well, I think,
Actually,
Michael,
tax
do you
day is
have, are
postponed,
you
ain't it?
semi-clear? Okay, good. I think we're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, appreciate that. Last item in the board action items, discuss whether we want to keep virtual or in-person meetings during the months of April and May. And kind of the way we're doing it right now is the first Monday of the month, the business meeting, we've been doing, like we are tonight, we've been doing it, in person. And the workshop meetings, we've been doing most of those virtual, I think. So the question is, and maybe it's too early, maybe we need another month to digest a little bit, but at what point do we want to get pretty much back closer to having, I'm really excited to have, at some point in time, have the citizens to come back, in here, even if it's not 10 or 15, whatever, have some back in the room where, we'll have them here. I think that's important for us to get to that point at some point in time. So what was your plans for this section?
Just to verify, so just kind of go through your calendar. April 15th will be in person with the chamber here. You have a afternoon session on April 22nd. That's virtual. That will be the review of the land development ordinance. Your next work session meeting is April 20th in 2 weeks. The question is, do you want to do that virtual or do you want to do it in person? And then more importantly, or do you want to maintain that kind of schedule for May for now also? So your point's right. I don't know. The really only change probably, I don't see the public coming back in here until at least June, quite frankly. And if that's the case, then the only meetings that would be affected is the third Tuesday meeting of the month.
What did you say about the first Monday?
Did I say first Monday?
Yeah,
First
you said
Tuesday.
Monday, and I was like, you said something about business meetings. I'm like,
No,
what?
first Tuesday of the
First
month
and
is the
third,
business
correct.
meeting. And I think the one in May, we do have public hearings, so,
Yeah, we still try and maintain, and I'm going to continue to try and maintain all the public hearings on that first meeting of the month. I think we're doing better work now with that second meeting of the month in more of a non-voting, if we can, and get a lot of good work done that makes these meetings go better, I think, and hold these for the follow-up to those and any public hearings associated with those. So really no action at those meetings generally. So if you want to keep on virtual for that meeting on April 20th, we can, or we can have it in person.
what's the thoughts of the board? That's just a workshop meeting.
That is.
pretty much.
I would say start in May or June, but keep this month the way it is. Let some more people go out there and get their shots.
You're saying keep this month the way it is?
Yes,
But in May and
virtual.
June, start going in person?
In May, right, May or June, whichever one the board votes on, but continue out this month the way we've been doing it.
Yeah, the sooner the better for me. I just like in person, so I agree with you. I'd like for us to start back in-person meetings in May if science, as Dr. Fauci says, if science dictates it, let's do it.
I'm good either way, whatever we want to do.
Let's watch what happens in the next few weeks, and May is we're 6 weeks away from that second meeting in May, so
Yep.
we can adjust if we need to. But let's plan to get back normal, and I think it may be a little bit earlier, but at some point in time, I hope we can get the seating and all back in here normal too. So as we kind of progress with that. I think we probably need to limit the number in here at some point in time, but
Right.
I think we can probably start getting a few back in.
So for purposes of planning, we'll keep April 20th virtual, and then have this meeting in May, the May 4th meeting, as it is today, without any public in here. recheck and make sure we want to go virtual or not for that second meeting in May. And then evaluate where we are in June with reconfiguring this room or not, for public or not.
You meant May 4th. I heard
Yes.
April 4th.
May 4th. May 4th. Mhm.
Is going to be in person, and we're determining.
Same as this one.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then we'll determine where we are May 18th.
Gotcha.
If we want to keep that virtual or do in person. Okay.
I just need to clarify one other date. April 22nd, LDO is virtual?
It is, from 1 to 5.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, so this is where I get a little concerned for May, but I'm okay with the dates because I think it won't happen until June. Everyone's gonna be hanging out at the beach, hotels, every place else, and we're gonna come back and have our meeting at the beginning of June. So that's something to think about as well, because that's where you always see your little, the increases in, the virus, so.
So you may want to keep this set in for the first meeting in June also.
I'm thinking that, because you know what I'm saying, everyone's going out, not everyone, but people are gonna be traveling a little bit more that Memorial Day
Yeah,
weekend.
we know, that's a few weeks away, we can.
We'll do a quick poll as we get closer and see where you all are.
Yeah, I think before we can start, putting any chairs out for people,
Yep.
we got to get back, we got to get out about over there, so I have to figure that out.
I'm going to go to the beach and chime in virtually for all the rest of the meetings.
So just to recap, if I'm understanding right, we got 2 meetings left in April. The 15th with the chamber will be in person.
Yes, at
And
6.
And the second meeting in April, which would be,
20th.
LDO workshop.
the 20th will be virtual.
That'll be a regular work session. And then the 22nd, the afternoon, 22nd, from 1 to 5, you should have received an invitation for the land development ordinance, and that will be virtual also.
And that's everybody.
That's everybody, including Planning Commission.
So we got a lot of meetings rest of this month, so.
Yeah, I mean, and then in May and June, you're holding public hearings and adopting budgets and LDO.
Right.
So,
Very good. All right. Well, good job.
Thank you.
Good job, board. I think we got through the agenda for tonight. We do have a few things that we can do with the communications real quick. Is anything from the town attorney for us tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the board, I have news to present with regard to the Barrington Development Agreement that was executed between the town and Kenlow and Lamel entities back in 2017. It was later amended in 2019 to add in a feature calling for the exchange of the town's property on Burlington Mills with the developer's construction of the Granite Boulevard. We have received notice from the developer that the developer has decided not to participate in the exchange and will not be moving forward with either acquisition of the land nor the construction of the road. And we need to probably discuss that. I know the manager has some thoughts on where we go from here, but I thought more importantly, you would have questions for the town attorney.
David, I'm so sorry, which property was that again?
This is our property here that wraps around behind Town Hall.
I was just asking
That has
about
been under the development agreement.
So how long do they have it tied up?
2 years?
They entered into the First Amendment in September 2019, and we did a Second Amendment in January of this year.
At their request?
I'm sorry. Go
At
ahead.
their request?
Yes.
How much land are we talking about over there?
6 or 7 acres?
How many acres is the Lamel property?
Like
It is,
6
6 or 7?
something,
there you go,
6 acres.
6.48.
They're planning to put multifamily on that.
Yeah, you have an approved PUD, but they were going to review it for potential and come back for a site plan to amend it for townhomes.
And we were going to give them that land in exchange for them completing Granite Falls Boulevard at a cost, approximate cost of,
I think when we did the exchange, the evaluation was 2 million, Amy? Was that thereabouts? 1.6 to 1.8.
okay.
It's my recommendation that we proceed on putting it back on the market
I agree.
and see what happens, and then react to that, and then make some decisions if there are any interests or not. Because I don't know. And
I think
we have not done
find
that.
interest in it because of the multifamily market.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Do we want to, we want to stick with, they really never got to change. So right now, it's, the board said it would be commercial, right? Mm-hmm. So, we would have to, they never got it that far. They rumored that they was going to put apartments there, right?
Correct.
Those town.
That was the townhouse, that was a rumor, but they never got far enough for us to approve that. So
Never submitted or anything.
Well,
So-
when you look at it, you don't have much visibility from your main
For
traffic
commercial.
arteries.
Yeah.
And so I just don't see it being commercial.
You're hidden behind
But
this.
I do see where someone would be interested in multifamily.
Because next to it is for sale as well, and that's about 7 or 8 or 10 acres, and that's multifamily, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all-
I think you just need to put it on the market and just see who comes calling.
That's just
So
a
what
big,
happens with the road?
that's just a big bill attached to it, that road.
Well, when you break it down, if you're
Road
talking
doesn't
about
have-
6 acres
Right now.
and you're talking about 1.6 million,
All right, and you're getting the land, but you just have to build out the road.
No,
Yeah.
no, they wouldn't build a road.
Yes, no, yes, no.
They're building the road, that's what he just said.
No, I'm saying, no, I'm talking about, Jackie, did you get what I was saying? If they're getting the property, but they have to build out the road.
If they buy
correct?
the property,
Right.
in lieu of.
Right.
In lieu of, you're still talking about $200,000 an acre. It's going to boil down on how many homes you can
can give
put
it
per
back
acre
there.
yeah.
on that. And I can see where somebody will be interested in that.
Now, the good news is a significant amount of engineering was completed on the project for the road.
And you have
and-
access to that to give to the interested party.
We're gonna attempt that, yes.
Yeah, well, the road wouldn't have anything to do with the
No.
purchase.
No.
In other words, in my understanding, David, that it's no commitment to build the road except for this agreement we had with these guys. If we decide to sell the land, then we would use the money to build the road if that's what we want to do,
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Is that my
Okay, I thought the
understanding?
road was a part of the condition.
That's correct.
from
So
It was
Lloyd,
from them.
but not from Lloyd, when Lloyd
But
first,
we could offer the
Did-
same deal
We
to the
could.
person that comes along.
right.
Well, I don't know, could you?
But
Do we want to go that way again?
So if we back up to the structure that we had in 2019, the idea was that the exchange would be made immediately, and the construction would have to happen after the exchange, so that the developer could start the process for approvals on the newly exchanged land. To secure the town's interest, the agreement provided for there to be a promissory note and a deed of trust burdening the land we were giving away in the amount of almost $2.1 million, which was the amount that the town had determined was the value of the land, so that that could become an even exchange and allowed under the statute. At the time, we believed the actual construction cost would be less than that, in the 1.6, 1.7 range, but I assume that those estimates were all done in 2018, 2019.
Did that answer the question, though?
No. The board tells me when I answer the question,
I think, but
then I'm off the hook.
But I guess you were saying, can it still be a done deal with the land included, like it was offered in 2019? I think that was the question.
Well, the board has to find someone else who would be interested in that structure. This made sense to this particular developer because their incumbent development is on Granite Falls Boulevard.
That's right. That's right. I think you would go through a bid process, and remember then that if we have more than one, we have the opportunity to do the upset bid.
Correct.
So now I think it's time to take it to market and see what we can do. You're not compelled to do anything with it, but at least you can see if there's value.
Yeah. And how many acres again? 8?
6.
6.5.
Yeah, but I think the land next to it is going for like 800, right, Jackie? Do you know?
Was that,
Isn't the land next to it going for like maybe 800?
I don't know.
And that's about 7 acres as well.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on my numbers.
Again, it's going to boil down to a lot of things, and rock borings and everything else, but the fact that some of the engineering has already been done is going to save a developer a lot of soft cost if we can provide that to the developer.
I'm saying the engineering on the
Engineering the
road
road.
has been complete. It's going to save a lot of cost for us when we build a road.
I thought you meant the land too.
Okay.
All right.
We have some information on this when we bought it, and they may have their own information. We don't have access to that, but we do have access to their engineering that they've completed on Granite Falls Boulevard.
Something to think about.
Okay.
So we'll schedule this for 2 weeks from now. We'll kind of wrap up a little proposal, kind of come back around, make sure you're good with it, and see if you want to proceed with what I just verbalized. So
Have they put any money down?
they have not.
Wow.
Again, this was a straight up exchange, 1-for-1 of the right of way for the land. Now, good news before we wrap this up, the right of way has been dedicated. So the right of way does exist as public right of way right now, and that happened as part of plats. So we do have the right of way, and we do have, I understand, 75% engineering drawings for that segment of Granite Falls.
Okay. All right, you got anything else to top that, David?
There's plenty pending at the General Assembly. I know that some of you are receiving emails from the league, from other groups. The home builders are very active. The league has been active as well. And there have been a number of land development proposals as well as some bills that are pending that would look to restrain the authority of cities and counties around the state. So we're keeping an eye on that.
Of course.
All righty.
All right. Anything else? Town manager.
I don't have anything else other than Dave hit that, and we are watching that. And then if you get a chance, watch the debate in Charlotte. So it mirrors what's going on in the state right now. And they are taking a lead of essentially in their comp plan renewal, they are not putting in any single family zoning. They believe it's all going to be, they want density. They need to accommodate density. And so Charlotte is kind of leading this path a little bit on this topic for urbanization for North Carolina. So if you get a chance, take a moment to look at what's going on down there. They almost got to the comp plan, it sounds like, to approve it, and it got stalled a little bit. But there is a lot of dynamics going on in housing right now and zoning in North Carolina, so we need to kind of keep on watching it.
So is that just in the downtown area or
No, the entire comp plan for Charlotte,
for the whole town of?
They are,
the entire city of Charlotte.
Charlotte is super
They're so busy, so much
unaffordable.
traffic.
I was just looking at a video of someone recording a one-bedroom apartment. Hear me, $1,700 a month. One-bedroom apartment
we
in
have that here in
Charlotte.
Raleigh as well.
$1,700 a month?
Yeah, 1,900, so expensive.
I ain't seen that.
One bedroom, yes.
I've seen $1,200, $1,300, but not $1,700, $1,800
This is
a month.
going in the wrong direction.
It really is. I'm trying to understand the concept behind that because they're already busy. It's already gridlocked down there. And it messes me up.
They don't want any more sprawl. They want to bring it back to center and build up.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be interesting.
But also, having two millennials, they want that. The millennials I've talked to, including my own, they don't want a home, they don't want a yard to maintain. They want a nice-looking apartment that's already done up for them with the most modern features and all the amenities without having to be committed to a house. So I can see, it's 88 million of them. So keep that in mind. They're a driving force, and they will create some change in this environment.
And the last announcement I have is I did let you know that Jason Brown has been selected to be our new planning director. He'll start May 3rd. He is working tonight for Nightdale at their town board meeting. His direct report is on break, so he's acting as department head over there today, doing all their development projects. But if you have any questions or anything about Jason, let me know. But we won't make that announcement. We'll kind of put it out there further as we get closer to that start date. But looking very excited. He did a good job in his interview process, and all his references and all his within the region and such. He's very well respected and a very hard worker. And I think you'll enjoy his perspective and ideas and his work ethic. So looking forward to him starting soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. From the staff, anybody want to go first?
Guess I'll go first. Good evening, Mayor and Town Commissioners. Just a few items tonight, I guess. And you heard from Commissioner Sutton about the Main Street group. And back in March, I attended the North Carolina Main Street virtual conference, and this was an annual conference that had, up till this past year, been in person. Attended by downtown economic development professionals, elected officials, local government staff, and consultants, all involved in the betterment of their downtown districts and communities across the country. So just some tidbits I gleaned, and picked up some resources that'll be useful for as we continue to develop this Main Street group. And speaking of millennials, one interesting marketing or social media item I learned was that millennials don't use Facebook. So as we're thinking about our town website and the social media media that we use, millennials aren't using Facebook. They're not on Facebook anymore. So
They're on Instagram, though.
Yep, they're on
Do you have an Instagram account?
Yep. No, we don't have TikTok
Oh,
yet.
we need a TikTok.
Instagram, Snapchat.
I don't know if they're still using Twitter or not, but
I don't think so, not that much. Instagram and Snapchat.
yeah, Snapchat. That's the other
I
one.
can't picture the town on Snapchat, but if I see it, I'm going to crack up laughing.
Right. And another was just the importance of what this one consultant termed as pause points in your community. These public realm spaces at the corners and crosswalks where people kind of slow down and notice things that make the community attractive. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do with our Main Street Vision Plan and with this grant project, really creating that sense of place and a destination, especially at the Young and Main Street intersection. So looking forward to that. And I continue to try to connect with local and regional banks to gauge interest in occupying that space vacated by Truist. And interestingly, I've reached out to the property management company there multiple times, and they pick up the phone and answer and politely say that they'll look into when that space will be available and get back to me, but I don't hear anything back. So that's about 2 or 3 times now that I've tried that, and so I'm still awaiting a response. We kind of wanted to kind of find out when that space was going to be put on the market, if the bank still owned that, are they holding that, just to see when that could be available for a new bank to move in there. So,
Michael, did you hear that they typically do that because they don't really want another bank taking over that spot so soon and having their clients switch over to the new bank? That's what somebody, I don't know where I heard that at, but I heard it's going to be a roadblock. You heard the same thing, Jackie? Yeah.
Yeah. It's just interesting that they're very polite, the property management company, and say, oh yeah, let me see if I can find out that information for you. But then I never hear anything afterwards, so I don't know.
Michael, I've experienced the same thing from the same people, and they have no interest in renting that property to another bank.
Yeah. So we'll have to look at.
Until that lease expires. Once that
Correct.
lease expires, they won't have any control over it.
Right.
Because they're still paying on it,
Yeah.
so.
So we can continue to look at other locations. I know there's couple other locations in town that might be suitable for a bank, but again, not many banks are looking into opening up a new build, a new physical location, just with the prevalence of online. I do not, it was going to be the end of March, March 31st, at least I don't know for sure. I'll have to drive by is it? Yeah. So.
But this is gonna be a hard battle because don't you think people are moving away from that type of banking anyway? Everything's like mostly online.
Yeah.
But you do have that core group of people who want to physically be in a location, a bank to be in a location where they can go in.
Yeah.
But that's like a dying breed, apparently.
I don't think so. I work in the financial industry. I work for a credit union, but there's a lot of banks that are building. Navy Federal is one that's putting money into building buildings here. There's a new Fifth Third Bank in Wake Forest. I've
So
never
maybe
seen a
that's,
Fifth
then
Third.
that must be their fear, that people will go to another bank, go to that bank and move their stuff over to that bank then. I don't know.
Unfortunately, it's like a lot of things, the most disenfranchised people is a lot of times the one that get affected the most because they're the ones that have to go to the bank. They may not have other sources for banking. So, those, and we got them in time. The migrant workers is one of them that is really impacted by not having a place to go because, they don't have bank accounts and stuff. And if somebody give them a check, they can't catch it.
And one of the reasons this location we're discussing is so attractive is that if a bank wants to test the waters, they can go in on a short-term lease, and if it proves positive and with good results, then they can look to building sticks and bricks here, or building the building and having a freestanding bank. But again, as Michael has already cited, and as I have already experienced, they're not giving out any information.
Have you looked into, I don't know if they do it here, but I know they did it in New York, where sometimes the banks would go into grocery stores. Maybe try to do a partnership with we only have one grocery store at this moment, but maybe look into that and seeing if they can,
Right.
give up some space and do banking that way.
Yep.
Because I know a lot of major grocery stores do that in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut.
It could be
I
a
don't know about any
possibility
place else.
that we could propose a food line and see if they're interested. Over the last few months, staff has met with a number of business owners and landowners with ideas for projects. In many cases, we're connecting these small business owners or those that wish to start a new business with the developers of Cobblestone and Walbrook. And depending on their timelines, as these mixed-use developments come on board, they'll present, nice opportunities and good locations for some of these interested businesses. So, and there just really seems to be sort of an uptick in activity, which is a good sign, hopefully, of things to come. Just in general news, many economists are predicting lower unemployment and a growing economy for 2021, despite COVID-19 and a slowdown or a pause this past year. The consensus seems to be that this year is and this area in particular is just well positioned in the long run for future growth. So I think it was at the budget meeting last week, I mentioned the life sciences sector is one of the most active in terms of number of projects and capital investment in Wake County. And so, and the industry accounts for about 67,000 jobs in the entire state. But as we think about targeting larger tracts of land for that future commercial or employment corridor, we'll definitely want to keep that life sciences industry in mind. There's a lot of people, I believe, in this community, too, that either work in Raleigh or RTP in the life sciences sector.
Is that medical research? What is
Yeah,
life sciences?
I think a little bit of each. Biotechnology, it's kind of a umbrella.
Gotcha.
industry, pharmaceuticals. And just one other thing, back in December, I don't know if anybody heard about this, but I caught this in, I guess it's a Metro Wake Forest magazine. So Adidas did a commercial over at the scuba park back in December, and they did a story on it. And I just thought it was interesting that was a location, one of the a location scout is from Raleigh, and he knew about the area, and they did an article on him, but filmed an Adidas commercial out there, and ordered food for the film crew at Sip Noshery, and she got it done in about 45 minutes. She said it was a $500 order. She turned around in 45 minutes for the film crew that was here. So I just thought that was an interesting story that drummed up some business for one of our local restaurants here from a film crew.
Were we
So
named in that? Did it say
it
Rolesville?
says a location in Rolesville. So
Oh, right.
even though that's kind of just outside of our jurisdiction there, over by the high school,
What you talking about?
the fantasy.
Fantasy Park?
Yep.
Yes, you don't hear much about that.
Yeah.
And the reason is, it's for scuba diving, but it's really nice park out there. But they don't, unless you're part of a scuba diving team or your scuba diving clubs, they got clubs and all that stuff. Unless you're there for that, you can't, they don't open for the public, and
Right.
that's why you don't see much advertising about it. But it's a nice facility, though.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential too. And I hear about scuba training happening and scuba clubs wanting to come to do training and things like that from all over the country, really. But yeah, so
Yep.
that's it.
Well, thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
Chief, you want to enlighten us a little bit?
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk. I'll be brief. I just have two announcements. Part of my promotion left a couple other positions vacant. Actually, they weren't vacant. They were being held in an interim status, so I solicited some information for that. And as of last week, I'm happy to announce that we have made two promotions. Richard Haynes from lieutenant to captain, and Courtney Williams from sergeant to lieutenant. So I'm very excited to have them aboard my new command staff. They have some very good ideas and philosophies on modern policing, which I think that will help us keep going into the 21st policing as we move forward. So very, very excited for that. The only other thing I had was the North Carolina Chiefs of Police Conference is coming up in May. And one of the blocks of instruction is for new police chiefs. So I am exploring ideas if scheduling allows to attend that in May. So that's all I got. Thank you all.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
do you have to go outside to get somebody to replace those positions that are now?
No, ma'am, and thank you for bringing that up. So the next available position that we have open currently is for the detective sergeant. So that's the one we will be filling next. And we plan on staying in-house for that.
Oh, okay.
And based on just rumor and people I've heard that was interested, there's going to be a large group of people to apply for that position. So I'm excited. We'll be working with Ms. Hill and Amy on putting that process together here shortly.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll be brief as well, or try to. Commissioner Vilga stole a lot of my thunder, so I'll go ahead and just recap what he said earlier. April 16th, we will have a blood drive here at the community center. Once again, this will be our third blood drive. They have been very successful. A lot of positive feedback from Red Cross for doing these in this time. So we're excited to have our third. If you haven't signed up yet, I think some spaces are still available. So you can go to Red Cross's website and sign up for that. The next day on Saturday, April 17th, we'll have our litter sweep. That, I believe we have over 25 participants already signed up for that, so we're looking forward to that. And we've already started some conversations with some residents of starting that volunteer group for a monthly pickup. So we're excited about hopefully getting this coalition going with some beautification of our town right-of-ways.
Did you hear from that one citizen?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Good. There was a citizen I can't remember his name, but he went through and picked up, I don't know, a whole truck of trash by himself. And I just happened to see it on social media, and I reached out to him just to say thank you. And I told JG about it, so I connected them. So, wow, I thought, how impressive is that? So,
a lot of
people care about where they
trash.
live.
Yes, ma'am. I believe he's adopted Main Street through the Adopted Highway Program from almost the bypass through.
His truck was full. The
Redford
whole
Place
bed was
Drive.
full
Really?
of bags
Wow.
that he had picked up. Anyway, so awesome.
Yes, ma'am. Also coming up on April 23rd, we're having our Arbor Day. We had a proclamation earlier tonight for that as well. That's going to be at Sanford Creek Elementary School on the Main Street Park side of that 500 Scarborough Street. That'll be a kind of a low-key event. We've reached out to the principal to get a couple students out as kind of are similar as what we've done in previous years. We didn't really want to enhance, make that larger due to COVID at this time. And we're also working to get saplings again to hand out that day. We'll have those available here at Town Hall. Once we get that number from the nursery, we'll be glad, we'll social media and then news blast as well to make sure we get that out to the residents of Rolesville to come by and get that free tree to get started in their yard.
Do you get to pick which ones you want?
Typically, the nurseries we work with, they'll donate them, so it's kind of at their discretion of what they have.
Tell them you want some more crepe myrtles. They give you the oak ones. They're too big. When you plant those things, they're huge. So I'm just saying, but anyway.
Crepe myrtle versus what? Don't you?
They don't give you like the oak trees, you know, city of
We've had
oak.
open maples.
Yeah.
You plant that thing, it's like this big. You're like, what have I done? So, you know, crepe myrtles you can control a little
You've
better.
grown a tree, that's what you've done.
They want
Come
a
on.
tree, not a bush.
Just saying, thank you, but
Yes, ma'am. Again, as Commissioner Vilga said earlier, we do have our trail art program beginning in June. We have some finalists and selected an artist. For that, we'll be placing 2 pieces of their art throughout the greenway systems every day in the month of June. As residents walk our trail systems and they find them, they're able to keep those and take those home with them. There'll be more in your FYI on April 22nd with more information about that program. We have opened up our shelters for rentals again, so we're starting to see some folks starting to register shelters. We're hoping to start in June for the community center. There's still some internal communications on what the official date's going to be, but we're shooting for June to open that. We've starting to get several phone calls and emails regarding rentals of the community center. Programming, our youth athletics program is in full swing. We will not be having rec day this year. Again, due to COVID and mass gatherings, we usually get around 2,000 people for that event. So again, we're not having an opening day ceremonies or the parade, but we will begin games at 9 a.m. on April 17th. Our youth dance classes and our art classes of all ages are currently ongoing, and we have others to register between now and June and through our programming, and those are programmed at our Young Street building downtown. In our summer camp program, 5 of the 9 weeks are currently full. In the remaining 4 weeks, there's only 12 spots remaining throughout those weeks. So that program, we anticipate being at full capacity once again this year. So we're excited about programming starting to pick up. Folks are getting out. On personnel side, I think you may be aware we are losing 2 personnels, one on Parks and Recreation, Tracy Paget. Her last day will be April 16th with us. She is our special events coordinator. She will be missed. She's one of those employees who helps everyone in the town hall building and in the PD as well, some with some publications. So she's going to be missed, and the trail art, that was one of her programs. So we're excited for her future, but we're also going to be sad to see her go. We'll be getting that ad out this week for her position. And Austin Kearney was our Public Works maintenance worker. He's leaving us as well on April 16th to pursue some work in the private sector, and we're going to wish him well. He was a valuable asset as well as our Public Works department. He was good. Kind of those jack of all trades. You know, if we had anything going on, he was one of those folks who were inside the building or pouring concrete or new bike racks. He was one of those instrumental in doing those. So as you may notice, the haze of green and yellow flying around, we're getting close to mowing season. So we'll be having ads. If they didn't go out today, it'll be hopefully going up tomorrow for seasonal Public Works staff to help us with our busy seasons of mowing and taking care of the parks and right-of-ways and things like that. And along with his position, the full-time position, getting posted as well. So that's what I have for tonight.
Tracy did an awesome job on I didn't get to work closely with Austin, but Tracy did a great job on the fall festival.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember how professional that was set up and the maps, and That was excellent.
Yeah,
So-
she was really good with detail and mapping and
Yes,
just
that was
organizing those events.
phenomenal. So we need to adopt that intelligence before she.
Yes, ma'am. We are using her hard in her last 2 weeks.
That was phenomenal.
Hey, one quick question on the litter sweep. Is there an age minimum for that?
Yes, 12 years old. That's a DOT standard, and I mean, this is the DOT litter sweep program we're participating in. That's what they, and the majority of the roads we're going to be picking up will be there right away.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question.
I have a quick question for
Yes,
Chief.
ma'am.
I'm sorry, JG.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of camps, as you know, JG had said, are you all going to do your camp care, or you're not sure yet?
Yes, ma'am. As of right now, we are still planning on having a camp. It's just going to be at our camp is typically around 50 per camp, and we hold 2 of those. So we're going to reduce capacity to be able to hold that. Right now, we are working on a facility. We're having a few complications on solidifying the where we're going to have it. Typically, we have it at Rolesville High School, and we have since, my understanding, since we began the camp. I think it was in 2014. So as soon as we get a building solidified, but we are definitely planning on having a camp, just at a reduced capacity.
Gotcha.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
I think we talked enough about finances in the last week. So I'm going to put on a little different hat tonight and talk about some capital project progress. So if you remember, several years ago, we were working on the East Young Street sidewalk project. We made some significant progress along there using some CDBG funds through Wake County. Then we progressed on to use some funds from the General Assembly to put another little portion in on the west side of that street down towards 401. And then the project came to a halt with the pandemic because DOT put a halt to many of their projects, and the remainder of that project uses a good portion of DOT funds. Good news is I've heard from them, I just got an email, read it a few hours ago, that they have released that funding. So we are ready to progress with the next phase, which is the signalized crossing of 401 bypass at East Young Street, and then a small portion of a multi-use path over on that east side of the road. So the designs are done, so it's just a matter of getting the bid out, and we're hopeful to have that done before the end of this month.
Wait, where's that you said like signaling? Did you? Where is that going to go exactly?
So it's so that it's so they can cross in sort of a zigzaggy type fashion to be able to cross the bypass.
That's really going to happen, huh?
It's really going to happen.
Okay, good news.
Yeah. So.
Groundbreaking with you.
I'm not going to be the rabbit running across that street.
Want to cross it?
Exactly, right? I was thinking it wasn't going to happen, but okay. No, you're going to be right by. You'll be right by my side, Kelly. Okay, cool. That's great news, Amy.
Thank you. Any other comments from the staff? Did we hit them all, I think? I don't think we have anybody from planning, do we? No. Good, good. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. I just want to close by saying, let's not get our hopes too high, but it was very exciting to get a note from Matt Caballari. I think it was around July 1st, because I think you thought it was a hoax, Kelly, but if I recall, April 1st, yeah. And Wake County, under his leadership, put in Rolesville Library as a #1 project for funding from the federal level. There's 3 Wake County projects. I'm not exactly sure what the other 2 is, but the library was, the Rolesville Library was the #1 project. Just looking at some of the grant things that asked for, the library would be 12,000 square feet, serving one of the largest, or one of the fastest growing towns in Wake County, and only municipality in the county without a library in its jurisdiction. The library will house a book collection of approximately 50 to 60,000 volumes, and a public Wi-Fi network, and 12 to 16 public computers providing internet service, printing, and copying. And then it goes on, talks about the weekly programs, 20 weekly programs for children, teens, and adults. Total cost they requesting is $11 million, $11,280,000, which is a big project. So let's keep our fingers crossed. This went to David Price, Congressman David Price. If anyone has any personal connection with David Price, reach out to him. Or if you know people that do know him, and reach out to him. This would be a magnificent thing if we could get this to work in Rolesville. It's a big need. Our kids need it. School kids need it. Wake County did a good job in the application. They showed all the other county libraries, and our area is just a big circle of nothing, So it really is needed. It's not a want. It's really a need from a standpoint of the community needing it. And
1,000 square feet is about 6 or 7 times as big as this room.
yeah,
So they're talking about a nice sized library.
it is. And so whatever lobbying you can do, if you can lobby, David, just give him a call, or his office a call, and see if he can put it on the top of his list, which I'm sure he's getting a lot of places other than Wake County. So it would be nice if we can make that happen. And I think the date would still be, what, did you hear a date on it? If it got approved, or if it got the funding, it's still.
Yeah, I'll do more with detail in 2 weeks. But this is part of the earmark legislation and he's going to bring forth 10. So he's taking applications, and there will be ultimately cut down to 10. And that's going to happen over the next month, I believe.
Part of the what legislation?
There is the earmark, it's called. Earmark,
Okay.
yeah. So Congress has decided to go back to a earmarking process, and the House side has done a process where they're going to allow their representatives to bring specific earmarks, up to 10, through a nationwide process.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'll provide more details, but, and as I told the mayor, I think now is the time to strike on all different fronts on this. So I'll bring up a couple other ideas that we might want to continue to push this around a little bit too, because this is one good source, but I think there's going to be a couple others too that we can take a look at, so.
Yeah, they call it the fiscal year 2022 Agricultural Appropriations Community Project. And according to the application here, public libraries, fit into it, is one of the things that they would fund. So
Does that include the land too, or just the building?
it had the construction cost of $5,600,000. I don't know if the land is kind of calculated in that construction cost or not. It doesn't have land broke out.
I doubt that.
Their assumption is.
We furnished
the land?
Separately.
Okay.
That'd be great. We need it.
Like I said, if you know some folks, give them a call, because it would be nice if we could make this happen. I'm kind of really thankful it's got this far. At least it's #1 in Wake County. Believe it or not, that's a big
As long as another
accomplishment
town
right there.
doesn't come
People
before
don't
us.
pan out. That's a good sign that they're interested in doing it in the future. So with that, I'll end the meeting on a good note. Appreciate everybody's participation tonight. We got a lot of business done. Thanks everybody for coming out, and we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.